My 33F husband, 36M, may have cheated on me with my dead best friend and had an affair baby. Throwaway account for safety. I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute cluster F you know what, and it only seems to be getting worse. My best friend since elementary school, who I will call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom after she passed away, who I will call Alexis. Last month, Alexis showed up on our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him. To answer the inevitable, Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of for why she didn't go for child support. During this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had, so we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. And my husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter is probably his, but that it isn't what I think. Almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we had just moved into our dream home after I finally finished residency and was set to make some real money for once. Alice was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there, and I didn't get back until after 3 a.m., and the party was winding down, my husband was passed out upstairs, and Alice had already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. My husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night to Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. And then he showed me some text messages he sent his best friend the next day asking for his advice about him thinking that someone SA'd him. But if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit at all. I don't know if that's because he cheated or if Alice did actually SA him and this was his trauma response. Honestly, Reddit, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children, and she had never come across as that kind of person. But I've also known my husband for over a decade, and he's not once ever given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy, and I've seen the looks he gets at the gym, and he's never even given more than a glance. What the hell should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone wanted to sleep with him. I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test before anything is decided on the child's part. But in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Then in the comments section, OP responds to Alice's behavior when visiting her at home and if Alice would tell her about the affair. Not that I noticed. She'd always been at least a little standoffish towards him as she thought I could do better. And the first time she visited after she gave birth, she asked where he was since he wasn't home. For the first time, but she never asked again after that. I hadn't thought about that actually, thank you. That's a good point. She always thought I could do better than him, so if it was an affair, you'd think she would have told me on her deathbed at least. Then OP answered on if her husband drinks or not and says, "No, not at all. He rarely drinks and generally only at parties, which at our ages are few and far in between. He works a tough and stressful job, so I figured once he was buzzed, he would lay down and fall asleep. Not that he had drank more than normal or anything like that." Then OP elaborated on if Alice ever mentioned the father of the baby and said, "She told me it was a man she met while in another state for work, a short-term fling." Then finally, one user commented and said, "Wait, I get that you need to process all of this, but you've told the potential victim of SA that he needs to leave his home, his safe place, and you, his safe person? I think you've jumped the gun a bit here and shunned your life mate who may have been SA'd. Yes, I'm starting to realize I've made a terrible mistake. Update. Same day. After talking with you, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend SA'd him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying, if only to separate us. And you're absolutely right. I was there in the room while she passed. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she essayed my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gather my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated wouldn't do it justice. It only happened 6 months ago, and I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown on me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and effed my husband, or she betrayed me and SA'd my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her and be struck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. It was wrong of me to ask him to leave. You're right though, and as of a few minutes ago, I've righted this wrong. I've called my husband, I apologized, I told him I believe him, and I begged him to come home. He'll be here in half an hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been on and off Reddit for several years, and sometimes the advice given on subreddits like these can be hit or miss. But today, you guys did good. You've helped me realize that not only was I wrong, and being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I can assure you we will deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb right now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend SA'd my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in his face. Right in front of me. She tortured the man I loved, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. Tomorrow, I'm going to take a leave of absence from work just until we can figure out our next steps, and we can get our heads on straight. So, we're starting with the depressing ending today on the video. Hello, everybody. As for the story, I understand OP's mindset of losing her friend and then losing her friend twice. And then the grieving and, this revelation, there's a lot going on in her mentally, so I can understand why she made the mistake. It doesn't necessarily excuse it, but I can see why, because you've got so much in your head, you're just like, okay, I can't deal with you right now. But then I think this is why people come to Reddit for advice. From an outsider perspective, somebody who isn't boggled down in the mud here, and say, hey, OP, you made a mistake kicking the hubby out. It seems like they're at least in the position to get their head set on straight, to address the situation. I don't know what they're going to do with the kid. Maybe we'll get an update. We read updates all the time. And I mean, just what a horrible, heartbreaking revelation to learn that your best friend did that to your husband. It's already horrible to think that your best friend did that at all, but like to the person you love did that to the other person you love. Oh man, that's horrible. And well, at least thank goodness OP's going to therapy. But next story. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for laughing when my aunt told my stepmom that being depressive doesn't make you sleep with a married man? Sorry for the long title. I really had no idea what to put there to explain the situation, and also my first language is Spanish. So, long story short, 2 years ago, my father left my mother to go with his mistress, whom I will call Anna. My mother never had any idea about the infidelity. Anna knew that my father was married. She even went to the house with him to take his things. One day, he simply told my mother that he is no longer in love with her and wants to be happy with Anna. I was there when everything happened. Anna was depressed, and she has many scars on her legs and arms. I don't go to my father's house. It makes me uncomfortable to be around them for obvious reasons. Anna is overly nice with me, and it's really uncomfortable. A few days ago, it was my grandfather's birthday, and the whole family was together, including Anna. I have an aunt who suffers from depression and other more heavy things like schizophrenia, and she has tried to hurt herself many times. At one point in the night, there were only my father, my aunt, Anna, another aunt, and I in the living room. For some reason, my aunt and Anna were talking about some serious things, and at one point, Anna began to say that depression made her do many things trying to feel fulfilled, that she could only overcome depression when she met my father, and he saved her, that meeting him was the key to overcoming her depression, and now she's finally happy thanks to him. I know about that because Anna often tried to bond with me by telling me how much she suffered in her life and how my father saved her. She has always justified herself that she was depressed and was in a hard place in her life before my father saved her. It always made me feel uncomfortable, and I don't feel empathy for her no matter how sweet she is. Talking about how many times you try to unalive yourself in front of my 8-year-old sister is not something normal. Anna has always tried to paint her relationship with my father as a fairy tale that began in a different way, but that she doesn't regret anything because her world is perfect now. At that moment, my aunt said something to her like, I tried to save myself by going to a psychologist. not by jumping on the dick of a married man. And then she began to say that depression made her want to jump off a bridge, but not ruin a family, and I just laughed. It was funny. My aunt may have had her mind elsewhere all day, but it was crazy to see her make such a sly comment. But when my father was taking me home, Anna was crying, and he scolded me for laughing at what my aunt said, saying that no one knows everything that Anna suffered. I know, she always talks about it, and I didn't apologize. But now I think I was really wrong to laugh. From my point of view, my aunt was right. Update. Hello, some things have happened over the weekend, and my aunt came home. I live with my mother, and I told my mom what happened. My mother hates my dad for obvious reasons, but she's been really nice to him and tried to keep us out of all these problems that they have. My mother is honestly a saint. My sister is an 8-year-old girl, and she really hates Anna. Anna once tried to get along with my sister and told her about the times she wanted to unalive herself and how my dad saved her. After that, my sister came home asking my mother if she had ever thought about committing self-unaliving. That's not a question an 8-year-old girl should ask. And my sister even asked me questions about taking her own life after that. I don't really know what else exactly Anna said to her, but it definitely affected her as a little girl. It's not even something you should talk about with a girl of that age. My mother was furious, and since that day, she forbids my father to have my younger sister near Anna, as she considers her a dangerous and unstable person around children. Since that day, things have been really tense between my father and mother, and my little sister doesn't want to visit our father, so she is fine with this. My aunt told my mother that Anna talked about it again, but this time in front of me. Apparently, my father and Anna were totally forbidden to talk about these things in front of me, too. I'm not a little kid, but apparently that was the arrangement my mother made with my father when she set boundaries for them. My aunt told her what happened that day, and I confessed to my mother that Anna and my father talk a lot about those self-unalive attempts in front of me, which is something I should have talked about before. But at that moment, I didn't want problems and decided to just ignore them. I told my mom that for that reason, I am not going to my father's house anymore, and my mother got very upset with him. The next day, she went to talk to my father. I don't know what they talked about, but she just came back saying that Anna can't get close to us anymore. She told me that she can't forbid me from being near my father, and that's my decision. But Anna is extremely forbidden to set foot in the same place where I and my sister are. My paternal grandparents agreed, and my aunts too. They knew about the situation with my younger sister. I haven't spoken to my father, but my cousin told me that my father argued with my grandfather. He often says that Anna is a good person and we don't understand the pain she suffered. So I guess he's upset with all of us now for our great lack of empathy, as he always says. I don't know, but at least now I won't see them for a while. It was a boring update, but that's what happened. Update number 2. Hi, I wasn't planning to make another update, but we've had a lot of problems with Anna. Too many, and I think now even my father has realized that she's crazy. I have stopped going to see my father, and my father's parents stopped allowing him to go with Anna to their house since I am there a lot, and my mother does not allow her to come near me or my sister. Anna began to have the strange behavior of starting to sending me text messages. First, she apologized to me, but insisted that my father misses me and my sister. I replied to her that my mother does not allow us to talk to her, and she said that she's my father's partner, so we have to get used to her being around. Then she started to talk badly about my mother, saying that I'm too young to realize it, but my mother is manipulating us, and that's wrong because she's not allowing us to be a family. I'm young, but I'm not dumb. I didn't answer her again and showed the messages to my mother, who spoke to my father again. My father knew nothing about this and apparently had an argument with Anna about this, since my mother is planning to take away his last name from our name to end with this crap show and protect us. I don't understand too much about this, but in my country, you go to court and take out your father's surname, making him have no right over you anymore. I honestly believe that neither my sister nor I would have any problem with this, but I think my mom just said that to scare him. This is something I heard from my aunt, and I don't know how much of this is real, but my father has been staying at my grandparents' house. One of those nights, Anna went to knock on the door looking for him just to argue. So she and my father began to do just that, and Anna yelled at my dad that he couldn't leave her like that, but nothing else happened because my grandfather kicked her out. My aunt also told me that my father told her that Anna sends him messages like, "If you leave me, I will take my own life," or "You can't leave me." So my father is afraid of leaving her and afraid of her. Less than 2 days ago, I found out that my father had to leave work quickly because she sent him goodbye messages. Nothing happened to her, she just cut her arms as always. My aunt said that this is something that Anna has always done. Even when the affair started, she sent him messages saying that she was about to take her own life so that my father would go to her. This is something that Anna has told me, but in a more romantic way, but it always scared me. I have no contact with my father, and I avoid him when he's on Grandpa's house. But as far as my aunt has told me, he doesn't know what to do since he misses us, but is afraid to leave her, and that she will take her own life. I feel bad for thinking this, but I'm really relieved to be hearing all of this from afar. I'm so thankful that my mom forebode us to see her before all of this happens. And honestly, this is his karma, so I'm not going to get into it. Wow, she's literally romanticizing self-harm. Can you believe that? OP didn't really give the ages here apart from her 8-year-old little sister, but I feel like Anna, the affair partner, is like a 20-year-old girl. This feels like the behavior of a mentally unstable 20-year-old woman. Not that people in their 40s can't be mentally unstable and crazy, but we've read stories and I feel like my heart and my gut are saying it's a 20-year-old. I think the 40-year-old zaddy got with the 20-year-old mentally unstable hussy, and that's what we have here. I used zaddy and hussy in the same sentence. That's a first. But you know what? Like OP said, this is Dad's karma. He left the mom, his wife, a saint, as OP put her, and this is his bed, and now he has to lie in it. And now he's scared of his partner and scared for her. So that's what he deserves, really, I think. I don't like Anna from the description we've gotten from her through OP, but I don't want her to die either, but, I'm not a fan of her either. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for being mad that my husband thinks I tricked him with our child's birth certificate? I want to give some backstory to explain where I am coming from and why this situation is so hurtful for me. My husband and I come from similar backgrounds. Our families were paycheck to paycheck, and not many went to college. We both have degrees and make significantly more than the rest of our families. When we got married, I was already a homeowner of a small business and had a car. My husband, however, had a lot of debt and his credit was trash. It wasn't his fault. He had significant student loans and had frequently had to help his family members with money. He also has ADHD and had mishandled some bills. I was understanding of his situation, but I was also anxious to help him get debt-free so we can have kids without such burdens over us. He was making $80K and I was making $100K. He moved in with me and we split expenses 50-50, except that he didn't have to pay any rent. I fully covered the mortgage and home insurance since he's not on the deed, and I also paid extra in his debt so he can pay it off early. His car loan is in my name, and I also cover half of that. I do IT technical support, and I got the opportunity to take a job that required 50% travel but paid a lot more. We together decided that I'd do this job for a few years to significantly shore up our savings and pay off a good portion of the debt. I did this job for a little over 2 years until I got pregnant, and then I took a lower paying job, $120K now, which doesn't require travel. The travel job paid more, but it was so hard on me. I was traveling to the back ends of small towns where the big warehouses and data centers are located, and the job is physically demanding, pulling cables, moving equipment, working in very cold conditions. I was miserable in this job and ended up with some back problems, but it was a sacrifice for our family. When I was 8 months pregnant, my husband asked for a paternity test. It came out of nowhere, and I asked him if he didn't trust me, and he said he did, but because I did so much travel, he just needed some assurance for his peace of mind. He said his family and friends have asked him how he could be so sure of this pregnancy when I have been out of his home for so many nights. It really broke my heart that I did so much for this man and didn't try to protect my assets or money, and he treats me like this. I got very hormonal and cried about it, so he stopped pressuring me then. Now, our son is 3 months old and he's back at it again. He's put his foot down that I need to have the paternity test done and he won't sign the birth certificate otherwise. I told him his name is already on the birth certificate because we are married and I did the paperwork before they discharged us at the hospital. He didn't realize that would be the case and is furious at me thinking that I tricked him. So here I am, stuck married to a man who not only doesn't love me or trust me, but is an idiot. His family is calling me and pressuring me to let him do the test. My family is offended on my behalf, but some mutual friends are saying a test is not a big deal. But it is such a slap in the face after all I have done for him. Am I in the wrong for how I am feeling? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole, but I just don't see why you don't do the test. I personally think they should always do paternity tests at the hospital after the birth. I'm not saying you cheated or you ever would, but it happens a lot. You'd be surprised how often men find out they're raising other people's kids." A lot of people do a lot of things, but our relationship was supposed to be built on trust, and that's why I took a lot of financial risks for him. If he had set out at the beginning saying his trust is conditional, then okay, I wouldn't have been surprised by this. But he is okay with me paying so much for him and trusting that he won't cheat on me or divorce me and leave me exploited. But he doesn't trust me in return? How is that fair? And if he had discussed any of this before I got pregnant, that would have been a different situation, and I probably wouldn't have reacted this negatively. But to put this on me when I am about to give birth, that makes me not trust him. What do I get out of letting him insult me like this? Then OP elaborated on her husband's financial support for his family and said, yes, that has been a problem. One of the major dings on his credit report is because he co-signed a used car loan for his brother, who then flaked on making payments because it got too expensive to maintain that car. He helps out with his parents' medical bills and phone bills regularly, and also pitches in when they run short on money for other bills. I don't stop him from that, but we have had arguments about him contributing for parties or vacations for them. There was a major fallout from his refusal to co-sign another sibling's rental application. He's fought his family directly though, and he didn't use me as a scapegoat or blame me, I don't think. Then user 2 commented and said, hand him the test results with divorce papers. Sheesh, what do women see in men like this that makes them so irresistible that they pay tens of thousands of dollars for the privilege of taking care of him? No sex can be that good. I saw him as a kind man who worked hard and took care of his family. I expected him to show the same loyalty to me since I am now his family. I thought I was doing my part, helping him out where he was vulnerable, and in turn, I thought I would have his support. And finally, user 3 commented and said, not the a-hole. Why hasn't he already paid to have the test himself? He's that lazy and incompetent? And that's your fault somehow? I'd also tell him he gets to pay 100% of his car loan, because clearly you need to be saving money for security. When he first brought it up, I was 8 months pregnant, so need my participation for the test. Now the baby is always attached to me, so maybe he didn't think he could do it without my noticing. He could have waited a year or so, but I guess patience for my sake is too much to ask. Update: 2 weeks later. In my previous post, I had asked about how to deal with my husband wanting a paternity test. We did the test and got the expected results. He wanted to get one that has legal validity, not a home test. It was a lot more expensive and he paid for it. We had to use the agency to swab samples and maintain a chain of custody. I was surprised and bothered that he had this planned, but he covered the high price and it'd be in my interest to have a clear, indisputable legal trail, so we went and did that. He has been over the moon and happy since then that I agreed to do it, and I resent his happiness. He got the STI panel done, and that was clean too. He was surprised by my request, but he didn't argue about it. He said it's just a test, no big deal. He was a lot more weirded out about a post-nup and a flat-out refusal from him to cooperate there. I gave up on that because I consulted a lawyer and I can't get much from that anyway. Whatever I have spent on him and his debt is gone, and I can't expect anything back, and we are in a community property state. We argued a lot about separating finances, with him accusing me of trying to control him using money. He pointed out that we were a couple years away from him becoming debt-free, and if I leave it all on him, then it'll take him 5+ years. He still does not understand how his showing a lack of trust in me is comparable. He kept arguing that if he were the one with more money, he'd have to spend it on me, and for me to use this now makes me a bad partner. He eventually came around and agreed to contributing more to bills after seeing how much my family has turned cold towards him. I am close to my family, and they had loved him, but this has made them upset at him. My little sister was outright rude to him, which really got to him. He is the middle child and was frequently teased and bullied by his siblings. My sister was the only relative who loved him like an older brother and dotted on him. My words and arguments didn't move him, but he got upset about her icing him out. So now he'll be paying for his own car and contributing to insurance and covering his debt by himself. Still no rent because he simply can't afford it though. I wasn't going to ask him to stop supporting his parents, and after all that, there's nothing in his bucket. I wasn't thinking divorce when I wrote this post, and I still don't want to, but I feel like I am falling out of love with this man. Like the scales have fallen from my eyes and all his faults that I had minimized before stand out glaringly. My mother is fully on my side, but she has advised me not to make any quick decisions. I don't know what I'm going to do, and he's trying to be helpful and a good partner, but it feels like an act. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Whoa, who could have thought accusing your wife of cheating would negatively impact her feelings towards you?" Then user 4 commented and said, "Funny that being accused of cheating has caused you to reconsider your thoughts on the marriage. Gee, I wonder why. He doesn't like that your family is icing him out? Too funny, as it seems pretty obvious that he has zero self-awareness and zero understanding of how his actions have impacted you. Frankly, OP, you are right to rethink your commitment to him. His very actions towards you have shown that he does not have that level of commitment towards you. What is his next outlandish and child act going to be? Yeah, the baby is his, but the underlying accusation that went with the paternity test, infidelity, has still stained you. I would continue to separate all finances and get your ducks in order. You've already spoken to a lawyer about a post-nup, so you should consider drafting your divorce papers. He doesn't understand the almost irreparable damage that he has caused to the marriage, again, with zero awareness. I guess the question that you have to ask yourself is, can you live with him? All other red flags aside, can you live with the fact that he does not trust you? He may say he does, but that is BS. He wouldn't have called for a paternity test if he did. Now add in all the other red flags and ask yourself, can you live with this? Can you bring your child up in a household where one partner does not pull his weight and doesn't trust the other? And finally, user 5 commented and said, what he's doing now is just damage control. It's definitely an act. Like your mom said, don't make any hasty decisions, but it sounds like you know exactly where this is headed. Don't stay in a relationship you're not happy with. It's not healthy for you or your child. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole for wanting to leave my fiancé due to her abusive family? I've been dating my fiancé for 4 years and have been engaged for 7 months. We are trying to plan out a wedding for roughly fall of next year. Her childhood was terrible and abusive, to put it mildly, and her parents were raging narcissists, and she was the scapegoat for her 2 brothers. She was abused and thrown out the moment she turned 18. She was, however, a great student and a hard worker, so with some scholarships and a part-time job, she has a great career and is pretty independent. The problem is, though, is that she still had contact with her family, and none of them have changed. We actually think something has changed. They've become more financially dependent on her. They enjoy slowly creeping back into her life and emotionally blackmailing her for support or whatever she can do. They're not pleasant about it either. They are rude, smug, and generally enjoy being a nuisance. And my fiancé can't say no. No matter the horrible things they say or how they outright try and intimidate her openly. I've always known her family history and have always supported her through the issues with them, but in the last year or so, they've become far more brazen and asinine. They come over to our house more often. They make messes all around the place. Her mother acts like she's the effing stepmother from Cinderella. Her dad drinks all my effing beer and empties out half the fridge. Her brothers stop by occasionally to act as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trash the place and leave us to clean the mess. And where's my fiancé in all of this? Quietly standing in the corner, practically shaking. I'm no fool here. There is legitimate trauma. There's her need to feel loved by them and her hoping they will appreciate her. And before one of you noble commenters state the obvious, she's been in therapy for this for years. I've tried to establish boundaries. For nearly 2 years, I've been trying to push these ass clowns away. But this is her house she purchased, and no matter of contributions, financial or otherwise, will she let me have a say on who comes into her house. She's been beaten down mentally and emotionally by them for so long. She's told me recently that she wants to earn their approval, how they were right about her, how she needs to be better for them. I've had too many emotional conversations with tears and begging to count, hoping she will take the steps to get better, but she's an adult. I can't force her to do anything. I love her, but I can't help but feel so resentful of what she's doing. It's agonizing watching someone you love, someone you know who deserves so much better, openly destroy themselves for people like her family. It's been painful watching herself cry to sleep one too many nights because of them. I've tried too many times to help her get out of their clutches, but I have to think of the future. What happens when we have kids? What happens when she is postpartum and invites them over? What happens if there is a medical emergency for either of us? What if our finances get tight and they still demand money? This is the in-law family from hell, and I won't be able to avoid them. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell her I want to delay the wedding until firm boundaries are established. If she resents, I walk. I can't do it anymore. I refuse to watch a slow death like this any further. Small update. I spoke to her and it went about as well as one could possibly expect. Currently getting myself set up in a hotel for a few days and working on possible long-term plans for moving out. Still a lot going on right now, but maybe sometime next week I'll be able to put everything together into one update. Then in the comments section, the consensus was that OP was not the a-hole. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, would the two of you be open to couples therapy? Therapy Therapy is too often brought up as the ultimate solution to relationship problems, but in this instance, having a neutral third party who is experienced and qualified in the area of couples therapy could be really helpful. Best of luck, and the only a-holes here are her family. I've hinted at it before, but she hasn't been very receptive. I'm hoping tomorrow I can try and pursue that and not have to make an ultimatum. And then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. You can't save her if she doesn't want to be saved. Even if she wants to, you'd only be able to help and support. She needs to be the one to enforce the boundaries and hold them, but she doesn't. It's up to you if you want this for life. Have you spoken to her about where you are? That you're on the verge of breaking up with her for these lack of boundaries? It's not to manipulate her into choosing you, although some will say that. It's just a statement of fact. She may be willing to sacrifice everything for her family, but you are not. If this is the life you have to look forward to, you don't want it. You need to put yourself and your needs first. Who knows, it may prompt her to open her eyes and put herself first with her family, but likely not." Update number 1. The night after I made my first post, I had decided that I was going to have a heart-to-heart with my fiancée about her family. However, she came back from work the next day, early, and I was already off that day, so I initiated the talk a little sooner than I planned. Essentially, I told her how this arrangement was not sustainable. I did not feel comfortable marrying her due to how much involvement in her life her family has, and I certainly did not feel comfortable bringing a child into this world with them. I didn't want to tell her cold turkey no contact with them, but strict limitations to start with on them coming over, and what they can do around the house. I also requested couples therapy before marriage. She wasn't happy. She was just staring angrily at me while I spoke, then started yelling at me when I finished. She told me I don't understand their dynamic, and it worked for her, and I told her that they are abusers who will bleed her dry, and I have never seen them show any decency to her. She told me she just had to work harder for them to appreciate her, and I basically yelled at her that a parent's child shouldn't have to beg and plead and work for them to be loved. I finally told her that she sets limits with them, or I walk. She was livid, and since I was living in her house, I was kicked out. So, the past few days I've been staying in a hotel and have had my stuff taken out and put into storage. And frankly, it's been great. I am going to stay with family for a few weeks around mid-July, and after that I'm going to go house searching for myself. I've spent the last couple of days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games that I haven't had time for, and could go back from work to a quiet room without her tearing the place apart. Yesterday, however, things came to a head. We have basically been no contact since she booted me out, but I know every Saturday her family loves to spend the afternoon over, and she uses me as a shield from their abuse. However, in a very petty move, I simply kept my phone muted all day and played Disco Elysium. I know she would call back for help with her family, and at this point, pure resentment was kicking in for her, and I wanted nothing to do with her issues. By the end of the night, she had sent me over a dozen text messages, and finally 2 frantic voicemails begging me to come home. I decided to come over to check up on her, and long story short, she was sobbing in the living room. And when I came to talk to her, she was practically crushing my back, hugging me and sobbing. I gave her time to cool off and asked what happened. Long story short, her parents and brother came by to gift money from her and say horrible crap to her. She wanted to have me come over and to help, but I was ignoring her. And when she tried to have one of her friends help out, and everyone basically said F that, it all started clicking in for her. She kicked her family out, but not before they said some utterly vile crap to her that I will not repeat. And she kept apologizing to me and told me over and over to come home. I told her plainly that I had started to build up heavy resentment towards her for some time, and while I loved her and understand it was trauma and not her being outright abusive, there was major issues that would need to be addressed if we were to move forward. 1. She sells the house and moves. We make roughly the same amount of money, and we will buy a house together. I am a grown-ass man, and I will not live in a house I have no equal agency over. 2. Her family will never step a foot in it. They will never come over. They will be treated by me in a very threatening manner if they try and come in. 3. She gets a new therapist and we start premarital counseling. 4. She never makes me interact with her family. 5. We go low contact with her family right now, but make no mistake, we are working towards full no contact on her end. I told her I love her, and we've been together for a while and have beautiful memories together, and I know she is suffering from abuse, but these are non-negotiable, and if she has a problem with any of them, then we have to go our separate ways. She told me that she's realized for a while now that her family is toxic and unhealthy, and she wants to make changes. She's accepted, but some of these will take a while to see through. For now, I'm going to stay in the hotel until I head back to stay with my family. She's welcome to come over, but I've made it clear her house is not somewhere I want to go. Her and I are both both off tomorrow, so we will spend the day here and maybe go out. This is obviously not over yet, but I might not post anything until mid-August or so. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "It's cute that you think she won't continue to choose her family over you, but it's going to be even worse once you're legally bound by a home purchase." And then user 2 commented and said, "She isn't going to follow through. She's going to do anything she can to keep you around as her shield, but she isn't going to cut them off. And if you get a house together and God forbid have a child, you're then tied to them, and your child is tied to them for the rest of your life. The best thing you can do is step away." Update number 2. Despite all intentions of not updating until much later with the hopes of an improved relationship with my fiancé and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we are now broken up. Essentially what happened was after last weekend where I left her for the time to deal with them herself, she seemed to finally grasp the situation and was open to changes, including boundaries and a possible move. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out in my hotel that I was staying in until I went back to my family for a couple of weeks. The other night, she was being very vague with texting when she originally was supposed to come over. She came over much later than expected, and I knew something was up. She basically unloaded on me how I was abusive, controlling, overly demanding, and unsupportive. It took me 5 effing seconds to figure out she was repeating verbatim some sort of rehearsed speech from her parents. And to be honest, I was so agitated at this point despite making a huge gamble on her, and I decided to be a prick about it. I asked her if her family told her to say this. She said they suggested it to her, but she came up with it herself. Sure. And I asked her to explain in detail what I did, and she said I was living like a parasite off of her. I reminded her that I'm paying 50-50 for her effing mortgage, 50-50 for utilities and groceries as well. I have my own car that I pay for, a job that makes just about as much as hers, unlike her effing leech parents who demand payments on the weekly and raid the kitchen on the weekends. I told her to try again with something better. She looked flustered and said I was trying to isolate her. I kind of smirked like a jackass and told her that I have always supported her many friendships that she has destroyed on her own because no one wants to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. I was practically demanding to know at this point why she is so hell-bent on destroying her life for these people. She just kind of shouted that I don't understand her family and she's just trying to earn their love back and basically was ranting at that point. It was just so staggering to see up close. I have ventured into a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you have any familiarity with them, you'll see how people who are victims of abuse by their own family can be so utterly broken that it'll wreck their brain to where they truly believe they are the problem and they deserve the abuse. Well, that's how she was. She was utterly broken and didn't want help. She didn't want to get better, she just wanted to get worse. It hit me like a truck, honestly, the realization. I really did feel like a fool for trying, even if it was what I was supposed to do in the first place. She was practically berserk at this point, and I was just mentally exhausted and needed her to leave before someone called the police. She finally left, but I had a few concerned neighbors check in on me. Some of her friends are aware, as they have messaged me checking in on the situation. I told them the truth and that I just needed to be alone to think about what to do next right now. They have revealed that she has given them similar rants after they expressed concern for her. One had even heard that she may possibly be at risk of losing her job. She is definitely having some sort of mental break. From my understanding, she is now completely isolated. She is actually sprinting into a horrible, lonely life right now, and there's nothing I can do for her at this point, and as selfish as it sounds, I'm just glad it's going to be behind me. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Move out, cut out all contact, and move on. You can't make someone help themselves." And then user 2 commented and said, "Sorry it went this way, but you can't help someone who doesn't want it. In many ways, she sounds like an addict, and her addiction is to the vile treatment she gets from her family, and to the faint hope that they'll love her someday. She has to hit rock bottom, just like any addict, but you shouldn't be around when that happens." Update number 3. Things have kinda wrapped up, but there were some loose ends. I completely forgot to change my mailing address, which I should have done ASAP, so a couple of important things got sent to her house. I had to go pick them up, plus a final couple of items I want for my move that I left there and decided I wanted to actually take. She was being difficult and not responding to messages in regards to them, so I had to get them from her myself. I brought a mutual friend just in case, and thankfully she was at least cooperative in letting me get my stuff, and it wasn't much of an issue. Everything else was, though. She had a lot of nasty things to say. Telling me she was already sleeping around, telling me how happy she was now that I was gone, telling me she's finally free of me, how she's going to be so much better better off without me. A lot of generic insults and horrible things you would commonly hear and expect from a nasty breakup. And you know what? It was so effing obvious it was a rehearsed script from her family, and you could easily see how miserable she was. She looked like a mess, like she hasn't slept in days. The house was a mess. She wasn't even yelling it. She sounded so exhausted and broken when she said it. She didn't even smile when she said anything. Just a face contorted in hate and anger. She was not the woman I knew anymore. That person was gone. When I was getting ready to leave, she was still going on, and I was fed up and told her something along the lines of, "Congratulations. Your friends are gone, your human shields are gone, your engagement is over, your support is gone, and anyone who ever treated you like a decent human being is gone. It's just you and your family. I hope you're happy while they bleed you dry." And it probably didn't go like that, but something like that. And she just stood there, literally just stood there and looked at me with indifference and walked away as I walked out the door. As we were leaving, the mutual friend Tiffany asked if I was okay. I reassured her I was, and I'm just trying to get myself set up to go home next week. She also confirmed that she hears my ex did lose her job for not showing up for several days and is basically ghosting them. They're going to try an intervention next week and asked if I could participate, but I'm not delaying my travel because frankly, I just want a clean break. I know for a fact that if I stay involved, I'm only going to be witnessing the slow descent to either a full break or a self-unalive. I just can't do that. Despite all of this, I'm actually excited for the future, and I have realized that I ignored way too many red flags at the beginning. Even with everything that happened, I know I'll be doing good, and I'm going to be alright. I expect this to be my final update. I'm still in town until Sunday afternoon, so something could happen while I'm still here, but if anything does, it won't be exciting. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole. Not participating in the intervention was the right choice. Maybe it'll help her, but not your problem. And also, she's proud of sleeping around?" And then user 2 commented and said, "She's becoming her family. You did the right thing. I come from a family much like hers. I've watched multiple cousins evolve into the next generation of abusive a-holes after once swearing that they would get away. They cared more about their family's approval than they did their mental well-being. And now they are miserable, and just like their parents to their own kids." New update. Final update. 9 days later. I'm currently back in my home state with my family, refamiliarizing myself with the area. I've 100% decided to stay here permanently, and I am starting the long process of looking up for homes in the area. I've been doing great and hanging out with friends and family. A couple of mutuals with my ex-fiancé have let me know what's been happening, and things finally seem to be getting better. The plan was for an intervention Sunday, but Saturday night after her family visited again, she called friends in an absolute manic state, and it finally seems to have clicked how bad she screwed up. It was a full-blown panic attack and meltdown, which ended with her in the ER. Needless to say, she finally admits how miserable she is, and that she's messed up her life badly. Apparently, she tried calling me, but I had her blocked. She still has her job, and that info about losing it was wrong apparently, but she's hanging by a thread there, and her boss has basically ordered her to use her PTO for a few weeks to get her head on straight. She's a valuable asset there, and they are trying to make sure she can fix herself before they pull the plug on her. Her friend group is extremely close. My ex was someone who was a very helpful and supportive friend, so it makes sense that her group is trying to go this far to help her. It is, however, an unspoken agreement that if she goes back to how she was again, that they are prepared to let her sink on her own. She's doing as well as can be expected. Her family has continued to call and message her, and they've tried showing up to her house, but have been firmly redirected by friends and even neighbors. I hope she truly understands the kind of support system she has. As trashy crap show family disputes usually go, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook, which from what I've heard has been in my ex's favor, as it has exposed their behavior to many more people, and it seems to have shut them up for a little while. Finally, she had one of the mutuals pass a message to me. Essentially, it was her admitting all the horrible things she said to me were not true, and were done by her family, as I knew they were, and she apologized for how things ended and hoped we could one day reconnect. Sadly, I had to relay that we need to stay separated for good, and she just needs to focus on her healing. But I told her I still care for her, and I wish her the best. But this needs to be our goodbye. The message seems to have been passed along, and her friends are helping her process that. She's got a long way to go, but I hope she can find her peace, as I am finding mine. And then OP elaborated on the ex's parents in the comments section and said, "They just tried to play the 'our daughter is ungrateful and being cruel' card to close friends and some family, only for a crap storm of people calling them out for their behavior. Take this with a grain of salt, as it's unconfirmed from what someone told me, but in retaliation for that, people started directly calling one of the brothers' employers and leaving scathing reviews on their Facebook page, airing all the dirty laundry, and it isn't going well for him. But again, unconfirmed. Then one user commented and said,
I'm proud of OP for remaining as free as possible from that crap show on Facebook and all the family stuff.
It's far better for this woman if she realizes that her choices have real consequences. And that if she doesn't want future consequences like that, then she needs to do real and heavy work on herself. And finally, user 2 commented and said, Oof, glad to hear your ex-fiancé is hopefully getting the help she desperately needs. And my friend, I am glad you're protecting yourself from this cluster you know what. Stay strong and best wishes on your new journey back home. So I have to agree with one of those final comments there regarding consequences because, even though it seems like things may be on the up and up for her and maybe she's finally on the straight and narrow, or at least the very start of it, she needs to realize that her actions have consequences. Even though, yes, she was the victim, but she needs to realize that her being like this and continue to go back to her family is going to make her lose people. Thank goodness for her, she'd finally realized it and I guess hit rock bottom right after OP left town, but she wasn't going to hit rock bottom unless OP contributed to that and left for his own sake. And it's not a bad thing that he did that. I don't have much else to say, but thank goodness she's got a great support system, and even though she was a victim of abuse like OP mentioned, she was a really good friend before all of this, disaster and stuff took her away from her friends. So it's good to see that they're paying it back for her, but also sticking to their hard agreement that, hey, if you do this again for the 80th time, we're gone. And then that's on you. But best of luck to her and best of luck to OP. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for suggesting a threesome to my date who brought a friend along and expected me to pay? I have been talking to Denise for a couple of weeks and our schedules finally aligned last weekend, and I said we should get food and see where it goes. She didn't want me to pick her up, so we arranged to meet up, and I got there early and had a beer while I waited. When she showed up, she had a friend along. I thought maybe that was her ride or she wanted someone to meet me in case things got sketchy. Nope, the girl sat with us at the restaurant, and she ordered drinks and a meal. She was cool, and I enjoyed talking to her almost as much as with Denise. When the bill came, the waitress asked how we were paying, and I asked for a couple of seconds. The waitress left, and I asked Denise what was going on, and she said that her friend was along to make sure I was a good guy and that I should be paying for her too. I said that I had only asked her out and not the friend, and that I would not be paying for her. Denise said that I should be trying to impress her, and I was failing. I saw what was going on and decided to bounce, and I said that I would pay for supper if a threesome was on the table, and Denise and her friend got offended and said that I was a pig. When the waitress came back, I paid for my meal and drinks, and I also made sure to give her a cash tip and explained that it was a tip and not to be applied to the rest of the bill. Then I got up and left. Denise texted me and called me dozens of times to insult me, and she called me cheap. I may have been vulgar, but I don't think I was in the wrong. Am I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, Not the a-hole. I'm not one for hookups since I am old and ugly, but if I was getting together, seems to be when you hook up. If she brought up another girl along for you to pay for, it wasn't unreasonable. But you weren't doing it as a real suggestion, you were doing it to F with them. Yeah, it wasn't a serious suggestion. I would not know how to handle 2 women at once. I am not that guy. Then user 2 commented and said, I can't help but be curious. What if they did say yes to a threesome? I probably would have freaked out. I mean, I would have gone for it. That's a great story for my grandchildren to sing about. Then user 3 said, Singing, you say? I'm imagining something similar sounding to a sea shanty, or were you thinking like a lullaby, OP? Then user 3 commented and said, Singing, you say? I'm imagining something similar like a sea shanty, or were you thinking like a lullaby? See, I was thinking of an epic lyric poem recited from memory, like the Iliad. Then user 4 commented and said, But you would have paid for them, right? Yeah, I would have paid. And finally, user 5 commented and said, Sounds like a fair deal. F them both in exchange for a sandwich. We were at Red Robin's. And then OP provided more information and said, From my experience, most guys lie about their sex life. I'm being honest. I do not have a lot of experience. Update. 12 days later, I ran into Denise's friend while I was out with my dog about a week ago. I prepared myself for a verbal assault after our last encounter, but instead, she apologized. She said that it had been Denise's idea for her to come along, and she had been surprised when Denise expected me to pay the full bill. She said that she had thought I was a toxic a-hole for suggesting a threesome, but that she had seen the story on TikTok and recognized that it was my point of view. She then tracked down the Reddit post, and the comments stung, but they had been fair. She said that she had enjoyed talking to me and offered to take me out for supper, her treat, to make up for last time. I declined, but I offered to let her buy me a coffee at the dog-friendly cafe by the park. We had a really great time, and she is the sort of person I was looking for when I had asked out Denise. I got her information, and we have been talking for a week now. We are going out to see Twisters on Friday. My treat. So, something good came out of it. Thanks, everybody, and wish me luck. And then in the comments section, one user said,
Plot twist. You're just playing the long game, and you totally need to bring one of your bros to your date with her.
No, like I said last time, my sex life is as vanilla as you could imagine. And finally, user 2 commented and said,
Looks like Denise is the toxic one. It sounds like you got some chemistry with this lady, but she's still friends with that a-hole Denise. Do you really want to be in the orbit with that person?
We all have baggage. It's not like she was my girlfriend or anything. It was literally our first date. So I didn't think at first that OP was the a-hole. I think if anybody, it was Denise who wanted OP to pay for, her and her friend without, any talk or conversation. It was obvious that OP was just making like a sly reply, a joke regarding the scenario. But ultimately, it all worked out in OP's favor, and Denise, well, she can look through a window and cry a little. Oh well. Anyway, next story. Story number 6. I am at my wit's end. My son suddenly won't go into his room, but won't tell us why. We moved into a new house about a year ago so that my son, who turns 4 next month, can have his own room. We thought the transition would be rough, but he took to his room almost immediately and has had no issues. He loved his room, had all his toys in there, bedtime routines went smoothly. Most nights he dozes off after a couple of stories and a smooch on the head. He has his night lights and we keep his door open, even though he never mentioned being scared of the dark. Well, something changed on July 4th. He spent a good chunk of the afternoon playing in his room, even refusing to come downstairs for a bit. That same night, and every night since, he refuses to go into his room at all, insisting on sleeping in our room. He won't go in without us holding hands, and if we're able to get him in for a second to retrieve a specific toy, he won't go all the way in, and then immediately runs away back down the hall. He has no problem taking a bath in his bathroom across the hall, but he insists we keep the bathroom door closed. Then he runs straight from the bathroom to our room. We have asked him in all sorts of ways why he doesn't want to go into his room, and he'll deflect either by screaming "cowboy hat" a la Muffin or giggle while naming every animal he can think of. We're guessing he had a nightmare at some point, but he did spend the afternoon in his room with no problem on the day this started. We're not getting anywhere here, and as a result, I've been sleeping in his room while he shares our bed with my husband. Maybe I'm looking for someone else who had a similar experience with their child that can offer up some fresh ideas, or maybe I'm just venting because I miss my bed. Edit. Thank you all so much for your great responses, ideas, and stories. I think I may have cracked the case here, but now I have to figure out how to go about it. I was just grabbing something in his room around 3 p.m. today and heard what was definitely an animal scurrying on the roof. Probably a squirrel. We have a metal roof and an exposed beam ceiling, so we hear any drop of rain, but I have never until now heard an animal. This would make sense as to why he sometimes keeps naming animals in his room. Now, if I'm right, I just have to figure out how to go about this. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
My guess is he's either scared or ashamed. Could be fireworks like others are mentioning, or it could be really silly. Hopefully not a ghost. I'm thinking like he pooped in the closet, had a potty accident, vomited, broke, or spilled something. Have you torn the room apart to make sure nothing is different about it?
My perception is that he seems more scared than ashamed. I've been sleeping in his room every night and checked every single corner. Nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think it's the fireworks because there were no fireworks going on in the early afternoon when he was actually in his room. And either way, he enjoys fireworks so much. We stayed outside all evening and watched them in both the front and back of the house. I've kept his room as normal and welcoming as possible, especially when he's taking a bath. He might crane his head around the corner to get a peek of his room, but ultimately he will turn and run. We managed a few times to get him to walk a few steps in, grab a specific toy he wanted, but then he bolted. Update: 19 days later. After exactly 1 month, I finally figured it out. I've been busy but wanted to update because I'm still so shocked he's back in his room. A few days ago, I got my son to acknowledge a couple of toys from the doorway, and he stepped in a little bit with encouragement. I then took the opportunity to point at an object in his room, and he had a huge reaction to a Marvel poster that had been hanging over his bed since we moved in a year ago. He ran into our bedroom and hid under our covers, so I took it off the wall and walked it through the hallway. I stopped at our room for confirmation, and he freaked out when I was holding it. I told him that it's going in the garbage, and he's never going to see it ever ever again. I hid it downstairs for later disposal, came back upstairs and told him it was gone. He leaped out of our bed and hurried down the hall to his room and jumped in excitement that evil face is gone. And then he screamed in excitement about his Mario Kart bed, tossed my pillow off, threw his Mario pillow on, and tucked himself in. I was so ecstatic I danced around with him the rest of the night singing, "No more evil face!" And we played with all the toys he missed, and he slept in his room that night, and has since been spending even more time in his room playing by himself. He brings up nightly that evil face is gone and his room is fun. And to those who are curious, it was a Marvel poster framed with like 100 plus superheroes and villains. He had always named even some of the more obscure characters. My husband is a comic book guy who passed on this knowledge, and I'm not sure which character scared him in particular, but I theorize it was either MODOK or Ego, the Living Planet. I didn't stop to have him point out which was the evil face. Then in the comments section, one user said,
I knew it. Yes, Ego and MODOK have very evil faces. Another contender could be Armin Zola, him too.
That one too, but I couldn't remember his name. To be honest, when my husband put it up, I felt like one day he would be scared of some of the sinister faces on it, but it just didn't click since it had always been there. And finally, user 2 commented and said,
When my son was a baby, I put Mickey Mouse and Friends stickers on his wall near his changing table, and he got terrified of their eyes or something, and I had to remove them. When he was a preschooler, I bought him pajamas that had a polar bear face on them, and its eyes were angled and fierce-looking. He was scared of it. So I took a Sharpie and rounded the polar bear's eyes and brought his eyebrows out and down to look kinder, and I was proud of myself for that one.
Yup, I think it's best to stay away from eyes and front-facing heads for decor. He still has his big Mario movie poster with Mario and Luigi, but their heads are turned, so it's not so aggressive. Plus, he loves Mario and Luigi, so they are the opposite of scary. Look, everybody, I can agree. If I was a kid, looking at Ego, the Living Planet in comic book cartoon form could be a little scary. Also, MODOK could also be a little scary. And if you saw Ant-Man 3, he was also scary. But scary disappointing, like, oh my god, that's his ass. Why is he in this movie? The only good thing about Ant-Man 3 was Kang, and then the actor decided to go beat women and have his Michelle Obama fetish. That was weird. Anyway, as for the story, I can see why OP thought it because the poster was just there the whole time. She's just like, oh wait, it was right in front of us the whole time. So, problem resolved, kid's back in his room, and no more evil face. I'm just imagining them dancing for like 3 hours. That's so adorable. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. Am I in the wrong? Invited to a wedding, but there's a catch. Plus, new update. I was so happy to see a wedding invitation in my mailbox. I pulled it out and a little note fell out on an index card, but I looked at the invitation first. It was truly beautiful, and I immediately stuck it to my fridge like the work of art it was. It was addressed to my husband and me, and I was beyond stoked. I love weddings. I tend to get teary-eyed and smile until my face hurts at the joy of new beginnings and all the love. I was even a wedding singer. That's how much I love them. Then I picked up the note card, and I read that while my husband would be invited, I would be in another room helping to babysit all the children there, with several other female invitees. There's a special room for children at the church, and that's where I would be. For everything. I'd still need to dress for a wedding in case I wind up in any photos, but I'd be taking my reception meal with the children, and I'd be with all the kids for the ceremony. Then there was a link for their gift registry. Oh, and the meals for my husband and myself would be $100 each, and we have a link to pay it when we digitally RSVP. The first problem here is that I am disabled at 50 years old. Legally. I use oxygen. I use a walker when I need to walk long distances. I sometimes have to give up the walker entirely and use a wheelchair. I'm not proud of it, but there it is. I could happily sit in a room and look at kids, but I'd be pretty useless to prevent a fall or stop a child from choking or anything else that would require me to move quickly. Secondly, my husband isn't the one who has been friends with these people since childhood. I am. Why would he be invited to watch the ceremony and be part of the reception, but not me? My husband said he'd happily watch the kids and let me attend the wedding and reception, but the invitation specified that only other female invitees would be watching the kids, so I doubt they would let him. Is this a normal thing at weddings now? Do you pick guests to babysit other guests' children? Should I call them up and explain my health situation, even though they already know it, and visit me during multiple hospitalizations a year? I hate having to pull the health card, but honestly, what were they thinking? I confess that I feel offended and hurt that I'm nothing more than a babysitter to them, who is expected to pay for my supper and babysit for free. Would I be wrong to simply tell them we won't be able to attend and to find another sitter? And if we don't go, do we still send a gift? Update to address some questions. I knew these folks because my mom, rest in peace mom, and the bride's grandma were besties. So I grew up with the bride's mom as an almost sister to me. We went to school together, graduated together, worked at the same place twice, and have been super close since. The bride is like a goddaughter. At least I thought she was, and I'm gobsmacked here. The church where they're getting married at is a Southern Baptist church. They aren't members. None of us are overly religious. They just like the venue and booked it. I've never been inside, but it's lovely on the outside, and apparently it has a childcare room that is big enough for a bunch of women and kids to hole up comfortably for a wedding and reception. Also, we are all American. The groom's family is related to my family via marriage, and the bride and groom met at my house at a cookout a few years ago. I've always been way closer to the bride's family, though. I knew that there had been a proposal, and I got FaceTimed about 10 minutes after it happened, and my husband and I cried and laughed and wished them well, and oohed and awed over their story in the ring. I was expecting an invitation, sure, but not like this. The last time I had lunch with the bride's mom, she told me they're inviting around 200 people, so it'll be a large wedding with, I'm assuming, a ton of children. And no, I don't hate kids, I love kids. I would have loved to have kids of my own, but my body just wouldn't do it. It took 2 miscarriages and a stillbirth to finally make me accept that it wouldn't happen for us. We are in the process of adult adopting 2 young adults that we brought into our home when we found out they were kicked out and homeless at 18. They've lived with us for years and we're making it legal. They call us mom and pop and we're a family. I'm also still considering my options. I've started writing and deleted multiple emails to the bride's mom. I'm a raw nerve right now and my tone isn't the kindest. I want to keep it all in writing though, so that there can be no he said or she said. I plan to ask if they incorrectly sent me the note about babysitting, since they know I physically cannot do that. But every inception of the email so far has started with WTF Donna, so I need to think about it some more. Thanks for all the comments, I'm reading them all. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
OP, you said about your body, I'm not proud of it, but there it is. Sorry to not reply to your initial question, but this comment caught my attention. I just wanted to let you know that you should actually be very proud of yourself and your body for pushing through and using the equipment that is needed to support your body well.
Thank you so much. I never expected this to be my reality at 50 years old. Never. I went from being so healthy and doing all kinds of sports. I rocked roller derby and could swim like a fish and loved to play tennis, to this now. And sometimes I feel like it's not even my own body I'm living in anymore. It's just not okay. Therapy is helping me accept it, but it's an uphill battle that I feel like I can't win. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Update. I spoke to my friend, the mother of the bride, and I'm pretty upset. I've been bawling for most of the day. She called and said they were getting a lot of backlash from the wedding guests. No one wants to pay $100 for dinner, and only 3 of the women asked were okay with babysitting. I told her I understood that the guests were upset because it's just tacky to 1, be asked to pay, and 2, be told you were invited but only to babysit. I told her I would not be a babysitter. At all. No. Just no. She got mad and brought up how we were lifelong friends, and she said I'd be helping them more by babysitting than I'd be helping by simply sitting in a pew watching. I reminded her that I couldn't physically help at all due to, being legally disabled. She said they completely understood that and expected me to simply supervise the other sitters since they trusted me most. Again, I told her that I felt like it was insulting to be voluntold, thanks Reddit for that word, that I'd be babysitting and that I had no desire to do that, especially not dressed in formal wear. Then we got to the truth. She said that she didn't know if I'd be in a wheelchair that day or require a walker. That's fair, and I don't always know which one I'll need. She said that they wanted everyone in pews for the wedding video, and me sitting in a wheelchair would make me stick out and ruin videos and photos. I said, if I need a wheelchair that day, then I can move to a pew, and my husband can put the wheelchair in another room or back in our car. I may not even need it that day. Then she says to me,
well, space is limited in the pews, so you would take up the space of 2 people with your purse and oxygen tank?
And then I said, no, I would not. I wouldn't bring a purse in, and the oxygen tank either sits on my lap or in between my feet. It's like a little backpack. And then she said to me,
well, having you in oxygen in the photos would be distracting from the other people.
And there you have it. Words were exchanged and she hung up on me. I haven't been removed from any social media yet, but I fully expect to be. I already feel awful for being this way at only 50 years old. I didn't choose this. I didn't want this. If she thinks it's awful to have it photographed, just imagine living with it, which is what I told her before she hung up on me. I'm devastated. Just devastated. Update number 2. I am not in the greatest headspace. I don't think I've ever been less okay, honestly. I did not register to RSVP or communicate with them further until another invitee got in touch with me and said that the mother of the bride, a person I thought basically of as my sister, was bad-mouthing me into the ground. I explained my side, and our mutual friend was livid. They told the mother of the bride and the bride that they were wrong to want to exclude me because I might or might not need a wheelchair and would have oxygen on my face. I could remove my oxygen for photos, they told her. So, the mother of the bride sent me a message saying, and I quote,
Well, if you're going to be butthurt about the aesthetic we want to achieve and try to turn other guests against us, then you can effing come and sit in a pew, but not in photos. And we'll try to get the videographer to do edits to the wedding video too. But I won't forget how you made this difficult for us.
And then I replied to her, how did I make it difficult other than existing? And then she replied and said,
Well, you clearly told our mutual friend about what I told you regarding your wheelchair and oxygen, and now she's telling everyone else. We're getting a ton of hate.
And then I replied to her and said, she asked me if I was attending and I told her no and explained why. I didn't lie to her, I told her exactly what you said. You didn't tell me not to tell anyone your reasons. If they're valid reasons to you, then you shouldn't care who knows. And after that, well, I'm now blocked. By the bride, the mom, the dad, and the groom. A friendship I've had my entire life is over. A goddaughter that I helped nurture and care for is just gone now. We paid for the bride's car insurance, gas, and cell phone all through high school and college because we wanted her focused on just her studies and not a part-time job. Her parents got her a car but insisted she work, but her grades fell, so that's when we came in and helped her. And this is how they thank us? This is how they repay our kindness? I guess I'm a great friend when I'm giving money away, but I'm not good enough to be seen. I've felt like a burden my whole life, and this has set me back so far. I am just not okay. New update. Apparently, my post went sort of viral because it was on Fox News and a website called Bored Panda. A few mutual friends reached out and asked if it was me, and I admitted that it was. They were told apparently something completely different about the situation. The bride's mother told them that I refused to come because of my health difficulties and that I was afraid I would ruin the wedding and declined the RSVP. She even claimed that she had been begging me to attend ever since the engagement happened, which was a bold-faced lie. I am the one who organized and paid for the after-engagement party so they could announce the happy news to everyone, and I was clear to everyone that I couldn't wait to attend the wedding. So, I sent screenshots, photos of the invitation, and the note card telling me I'd be babysitting, and then the showdown where I was told I could sit in the pew and just be edited out of the video, and would not be in any photos. I also posted it on Facebook and shared receipts there too. Well, World War III has officially commenced. Granted, I'm getting this all third and fourth hand, but here's the latest. Word has spread fast. Links to the news article have made it all over the place, and I've been told that the few ladies who had agreed to babysit have backed out and asked if there was something wrong with them that would make them not fit to sit in the pews or be in photos. And I think that's probably the case, since two of them have unnatural hair coloring and the other has facial piercings. The church that was booked as the venue has been notified, and I'm hearing it's probably not going to happen there because the pastor's daughter is wheelchair-bound after a car accident. He was going to officiate, but now he says he's conflicted about it and the message it would send. My ex-friend and the bride have blown up my husband's phone because I blocked them after this went public. They blocked me first on all social media spots, by the way, and my husband let it go on for a few days to see what they had to say. He has since blocked them, but the bulk of it is that I'm jealous that I was never blessed with any children of my own, so that's why I'm ruining this for them. I'm hateful and vile and vindictive because I hate them for their clear health. I mentioned that the groom is related to me by marriage, right? That whole branch of the family tree has now divided itself, with some on my side and some on the bride's side. The groom hasn't contacted us at all, but his mother did and told me that I was wrong for sharing personal business and that I need to let the bride have her wedding how she wants it. I don't agree that I did anything wrong here. I can't help that I am sick. They've made me feel like utter trash that should just be tossed into a landfill. It hurt, and I literally ache because of this. So, hi Donna, my ex-best friend and practical sister. If you're reading this, you devastated me. I'm not okay. I don't know that I'll ever be okay again. I invested time and money into both you and your daughter. I gave you both a home when your marriage was messed up and never charged you rent or asked for help with groceries or utilities. For over a year, you lived in our home and we paid your way, so you are wrong to treat me this way. My oxygen mask and possible need for a wheelchair should be the last thing on either of your minds. Because what matters most is that I, feeling as bad as I normally do, was still going to put on my best dress, make myself look presentable, plant a smile on my face through my pain, and show up for you like I always have. But I never, ever will again. If people noticed me in your photos at all, it would have been because I had the biggest and most proud energy of anyone there, and they would see the love I had for you radiating off of the image. You will regret this one day when I'm gone, and you realize that there are more important things in life than a perfect photo. And finally, in the comment section, OP said, "This has been updated. Thank you guys for the private messages and all of the comments. It's safe to say that the war has commenced in my town, and I'm reeling. And I've honestly never felt lower in my life than I do right now. I've had pretty unhealthy thoughts, so I'm seeing my therapist 2 times a week now instead of every couple of weeks. And I'm seriously not okay. But you guys and your support and all the funny comments have really helped me. Thank you all." So we've had many stories where just weddings and pregnancy just seem to pull the crazy out of people, or pull crazy people towards it. And we've also had some more stories recently where, almost in this exact vein, there's a wedding and they don't want like a disabled person to show up in any of the photos, or a bald person to show up in any of the photos, a woman who's bald. I'm baffled that OP's best friend of 40 plus years probably just suddenly had this mindset and behavior. Maybe once OP became disabled, she started thinking of her differently. I don't know, but it's absolutely horrible. As OP is kind of alluded to, she's always down, and then her best friend, air quote, like kicked her while she was down. That's horrible and, insulting and detrimental. So I can understand why she's in this certain mindset. I suppose the only bright side is that, according to her, World War III has started. If the ex-best friend and her daughter were so confident in themselves, well, then they shouldn't be worried about the truth coming out, right? Wink, wink. Anyway, next story. Story number 8. Am I the a-hole for being upset that my husband is sharing a hotel room with another woman? My 36F husband, 42M, is currently in Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. He is there with his mom and his friends and folks from their bowling league. He is an avid bowler and bowls in a Tuesday night league, often in state tournaments and sometimes in national tournaments. Typically, I go with him and sometimes bowl myself, but this year I decided I would not go but stay home with our 3 boys, ages 4, 8, and 10, due to heat and smoke in Vegas in July. My husband and I have been married for 11 years. This is his second marriage. His first marriage failed because he walked in on his wife cheating on him with another man. I have never, not once, thought he would ever be intimate with another woman while he was with me. He's just not the type. So, on to this trip. Typically, when he goes on a trip without me, at least once a year given my job and time off requirements, he stays in a hotel room with his mom or our boys. 3 nights ago, I was on FaceTime with him while he was in the hotel room, and it was really nice, and he was talking about possibly taking a nap for lack of sleep. I asked if he had his room to himself, because that would have been awesome, and then he said, "Oh no, this person is sharing with me." And I asked him who he was referring to, and he said something I don't remember, aside from the word she, and I said, "Wait, what?" And then he went on to explain that he was supposed to share the room with his mom's boyfriend, but plans changed and now he is sharing the room with another woman on the trip. He then told me that I had played cornhole with her last month at a get-together. I reminded him of who I had played cornhole with, him and a girl, but not one with the name that he was giving me. I have no idea who this woman is, and at this point, he got very confused. He did not understand why I was so upset or frustrated, so I dropped it, because I didn't want to deter from his time and his bowling, and I know I should have asked him how he would have felt if the roles were reversed, but I didn't. Partially because I didn't want to fight, we hardly ever fight, and the kids were up, and partly because I didn't want to hear him chalk it up to my imagination. I have hardly slept since that night, and my dreams have been chock full of worst-case scenarios, and I still have not really brought it up again. There have been a few occasions in which he has talked about taking naps and how lame he is in Vegas. I've mentioned a few times, sort of sarcastically as a side, that he would be having more fun if he were sharing a room with me, or if I was there instead of his present company, but he has brushed it all aside. So, here we are. He has spent the last 3 nights in a hotel room with a woman that is not me or his mother. Am I the a-hole for being upset? Edit. Husband is coming home tonight and we will talk. I'm hoping it's 82-year-old grandma. Update. Okay. So I took some advice and grew a backbone as per some of your suggestions, and I texted him a little while ago instead of waiting until he got home. He and our boys are leaving for another trip tomorrow morning. I could not get the time off of work, so I wanted to make sure we had the conversation fully before he left again. Before I give the update, I wanted to make a couple of things clear. I do trust my husband. He has never shown he would be that kind of person to cheat, and that is not what truly concerned me, even though I did have some pretty unpleasant dreams. My issue was that he was not upfront and honest with me. If I had done the same thing, he would have lost his mind. Understandably, this is why I started the original post with, "He's just not that type." Continuing, we do generally have great communication. The issue here is that I like to have this kind of conversation face to face rather than over the phone. It's just not something I like to hash out while we're not in the same space. Obviously, in this situation, I should have made the exception and have now done so. Now for the update. I texted him today to tell him that this situation has been bothering me for the last 3 days, and I had questions and that we needed to have this conversation. I asked him who the woman was, how old she was, and why didn't he tell me about the situation before I found out by accident. So, there was a mix-up with the rooms, something about someone not going, so people were shuffled around. He was paired with a woman about my age. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal and didn't want to inconvenience everyone else on the trip. He also said he did not want to upset me, which is why he didn't right out tell me about it. He did tell me that I never had anything to worry about, and he made sure they weren't in the room alone together aside from when they were sleeping. I know, but I really do trust him on this. I was honest with him, and I told him that if the roles were reversed, out of respect for him, I would have called him right away to make sure if he was okay with it. I told him that while I trust him implicitly, I should not have found out the way I did, and he should not have blown off my concern. I told him that the lack of upfront communication felt suspicious, regardless of intention of what actually happened or not. As for not upsetting me, I told him I would have understood and not been upset if he had just been honest. He apologized profusely, and I told him next time to just communicate. He is adamant that there will not be a next time. So call me naive if you want, but I am dropping it at this point. He will be home this evening, and I intend on having a nice evening with him before I don't see him again for another 2 weeks. Thank you for the advice, and I cried out when I found out her age, but getting this off my chest has been very relieving. Update number 2. I am not handling this as well as I thought I was. I had decided to let it go. I know he wasn't doing anything with this other woman, and you can disagree and call me crazy if you'd like, but I do know that. However, as much as I have tried, I can't get past the fact that he made the decision to do something he knew I wouldn't be okay with, and not tell me about it. It all feels just so messed up. I've talked to a few of my coworkers. I don't really have any friends that aren't friends of his that I talk to on a regular basis, and there is no way I will talk to my family because that is a crap storm I can't handle right now. But all my coworkers are shocked and more angry for me than I have let myself be. Most of them know him, and the kind of person he is and what ended his first marriage. He used to work at the same company. We had less than 24 hours together before he, his mom, and all 3 of my children took their trip to the other side of the United States. And I've been sitting in my feels and will continue to do so until they get back. Almost another week from now. I was on the phone with him this evening before they went to bed, and one of the first things my husband said to me was, "I'm sharing a bed with a redhead tonight." And I almost came unglued before I realized he was talking about one of our boys. We have 3 sons. After a very long pause, I said, "You better be talking about our son," and I was so angry. I don't understand how he didn't pick up on that. Every conversation we have had has been short and to the point because I'm really just not interested in talking to him. I've been calling my oldest son and talking with my boys instead. His mom hasn't really said much to me, which makes me think he has said something to her, which is fine, of course. I really don't care about that. The bottom line is, I don't know what to do. It is midnight at home, and I tried to go to bed 2 hours ago and just could not stop sobbing. So I got up and let it go. It felt good to get it out, but I know I need to talk to somebody. And I have support lines through work I can call, but won't tonight. Far too many drinks, and I don't want to bring that into it as well. But I will call tomorrow. I know I should be upset and angry and not let it go, but I am afraid when I do talk to a professional, they will say I'm blowing it out of proportion. I will still call, but I need to get my head straight first. He is bicycling for 7 days, over 400 miles, so as much as I want to tear him a new one right now, especially after this completely insensitive and clueless joke this evening, I have not, because I want him home safe and sound. Regardless of my feelings in this moment, The most important thing is that my children's dad comes home safe, so we can hash this out in the same city at least, and not while he is 1,000 miles away with his mom and my children. Update number 3. I'm sorry it has been a bit since I have updated. Things have been a lot. I am also sorry, but this post is very long. My family came home a day early, so I took 2 extra days off of work to see them and figure things out with my husband. After we had unloaded and put everything away, we had dinner and watched a show. After putting the boys to bed, my husband and I went to our room. It was pretty clear he thought he was going to get lucky because he was very confused when I turned the light on. I told him that I had questions and that I needed him to answer them. He was hesitant but agreed. And I asked him who this woman was. How old is she? Is she married? And I still don't know who she is, but he did confirm she is younger than me and not married. I then asked who made the decision that he would be sharing a room with her, and he said that his mom said it would be really great if they shared so that she could spend 3 nights with her boyfriend/not boyfriend. I asked him why he didn't tell me about it. He said he was just so tired and had such a long day he didn't think about it, which is conflicting with his earlier statement of, "I didn't want to upset you," and he said that he didn't think I would ever question his intentions, so why would he think he would have to tell me? I told him it wasn't about questioning his intentions or fidelity, it's that what they did was completely inappropriate and disrespectful to me and our marriage. And at the absolute very least, he should have sent me a quick text message explaining the situation. I also told him that his mom is not always right. He apologized profusely and said he shouldn't have put his mom before me. He didn't think it would be a thing because he would never try to hurt me, and he thought I knew that. All the things. And we honestly talked it out and worked things out for a few solid hours, and we came to a really good place and connected for the first time in a long while. Then he went to work the next day, which hurt because I didn't really have the time to be calling in. I'm severely behind at work, but I did anyway because I wanted to do the right thing for us and to take care of us. But because he just spent 2 weeks going all over the country doing something super fun, and now he is super behind in his job, he couldn't afford to take any more time off, so that really hurt. But I let it go because he really was behind, and at least I had the boys that I got to catch up with. That day, my mom called me to see what we were doing for my birthday, which was 2 days away. I had honestly forgotten about it with everything, so I told her I don't know and asked if my husband had called her. She said he had not. So I told her I would let her know when we came up with a plan. That night I asked him if he had a plan, and he said, "Oh, I don't know, what do you want to do?" And that really hurt, but I let it go because we have had so much going on. And I told him it would be great if we had a barbecue, and he invited people and got the groceries, and he agreed. I specifically asked if he would call my mom. He did get some of the groceries, but not all of them, and he did surprise me with a cake, but that was it. I ended up inviting everyone last minute, having to apologize along the way, and had to go to the store twice to get the rest of the things we needed. At the party, he started showing our friends the pictures from his trip, pictures I haven't even seen yet. I was so mad, upset, frustrated, he didn't catch on. So then it came time for gifts, and his was a card and a back rub. I felt like I was just slapped in the face. And to be clear, I don't place a high value on gifts. If you get me something great, if you don't, that's fine. But he didn't get me anything for Mother's Day, but I got him a whole slew of things for Father's Day for his trip and an Xbox game he wanted. I also planned each of those days by myself, and he just went to the other side of the country, and all he thought to grab for me was a card game? I didn't want to fight in front of our friends, so I let it be. I didn't really expect more than that anyway, but it still hurt. Then I went back to work and things were meh. Anything he did irritated me. Anything his mom did irritated me. I was getting so frustrated and sad and angry and just not myself. Then I had a medical issue, something that pokes its little head back up every 5 years like clockwork, but I had been ignoring because of everything going on. But it came back, and I went to urgent care to take care of it. But I had to take care of all sorts of things first so that me going to the doctor didn't hamper my husband's day. So I was really irritated in the morning. It also didn't help that his mother came over, and I just can't handle her right now. It also didn't help that he told me that morning about all the plans he had come up with for our son's birthday in a few weeks. I was mad at myself for being upset. I should be stoked my husband is thinking about our son and wanting to give him a great birthday, but I was so deflated and sad and angry in that moment. But he had to go to work, so I left it alone. So before I went, I sent him a text apologizing for being irritated. I told him that I'm not in a good place mentally or physically, and I'm really struggling. He asked how he could help, and I responded that I really didn't know. And then I saw the doctor, and he referred to me to surgery. This will be the 3rd time I have to have surgery for this. And I was so frustrated and sad and hurt, and I decided to just put it all out there. And since he can't seem to find the time to actually talk to me, I texted him a novel, laying out everything that is on my mind. The trip, my birthday, him not taking time, my son's birthday, all of it. After an hour, he had not responded, so I sent him another text message saying that maybe he could just tell me I'm not crazy, and we will get through this together, or something like that at least. He responded to that saying that he loves me and has lots to say, but can't say it over the phone. So then I went to work and did the things, and I felt a little better that he didn't discredit all of my frustrations, so things were okay. That night, he called to tell me he loved me and was going to take the next day off to spend it with me. It was also my day off, and I was pretty darn stoked. The next day, I asked him what were the things he wanted to say to me, and he said he didn't want to say it in front of the kids. So then that night, I asked him again, and he said that we have been having such a great day, he didn't want to ruin it and get me all emotional, so he wasn't going to say it then. I felt like I had just been punched in the gut. So wait, you've been so nice since I texted you, but now I'm going to be sad and upset? What is going on? It is now the next day, and I just asked him again, and he completely blew me off and went to town to pick up our son from camp. I am at a loss. I don't know what to do. I can only ask him to talk to me so many times. He doesn't share his thoughts or emotions often, but I would think he would do it now, right? I don't know what to do.
Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Holy crap, you're not even an afterthought to this guy. You don't have any importance in his life. You're just there. He'll just tell you stuff to get you off his case and then just keep ignoring you."
Yeah, that is definitely how I feel. Then OP replied to multiple comments about getting help and seeking a counselor and said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your kind and understanding reply. I've made a few calls with no responses yet, and quite a few say that they are not taking new clients. Keeping my fingers crossed, though. And I do agree, I need an outside perspective other than Reddit. Thank you. I have used our system, but I still have to call. They helped narrow it down, but I have to make an appointment. And I get 6 free sessions, which is great. I just need someone to call me back. Thank you for the advice. I will try. I did get into 2 chapters of the book I'm reading this week, and I've taken extra time with my boys. I needed that." Then user 2 commented and said,
"I think that woman on the trip was more important than he's letting on. His mother would not be welcome in my house again until she apologizes to my face. No more trips alone for any reason for a very long time. He needs to have consequences, and you're letting him coast. He's trying to wait you out."
And finally, user 3 commented and said,
"I don't know why you just keep letting things go and deluding yourself that you're in a good place. Your husband was in a hotel room with a younger woman for days. He gaslit you that it's no big deal and acting like you're the crazy one for thinking it's a problem. In what world are things okay after that? How much of a doormat has he made you that one conversation blows that over? Your mother-in-law set him up to cheat on you. In no world is him sharing a room with a younger single woman appropriate. He knows that. She knows that. If you think he's a good boy, I don't know what kind of blinders you have on or what Kool-Aid you're drinking, but you need to stop. He blew off your birthday. He couldn't even muster going to the grocery store, let alone sending some text messages. He was away from you for 2 weeks and couldn't even bring you some postcards from along the way? My son was on a school trip for 4 days, and he brought me all kinds of little things because he was in a gas station and saw this pretty postcard that I would like, or at this gift shop and thought the keychain was something I would like. So your husband is less considerate than a teenager on a school trip with all of his teenage buddies? He gives you bullcrap after bullcrap and just pretends that things are fine. You lay it all out there via text, and again, he blows you off, gives you some love bombing in the form of family time, and expects to sweep it under the rug. He's hoping to wait you out before you find out what he actually did in that hotel room, or how many times he's met that woman before, or just to make sure he can feed you bullcrap after betraying your marriage with his mom's help, and that you'll just ignore it. At some point, you have to acknowledge you have a crappy husband and a very unhealthy marriage. How many ways does he have to show you you're not a priority, that he does not respect you, and he could not care less about your feelings before you believe him?
"Y'all, the truth hurts. I'm sure you guys caught on to it, the fact that she kept saying over and over again, I just let it go. And I was like, okay, first time, yeah. Second time, yeah. Third time, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever we were at, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. She's become a doormat, whether she was always like that or the husband put her in that scenario. She's like, you can see this stuff boiling under the surface with her, and I really thought she was going to explode at some point. And then the husband placates her with his lies over and over and over again. Yeah, babe, I hear you. Let's talk. 4 minutes later. You know what, babe? We don't really need to talk about anything. We're all fine, right? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm gonna head out for 2 weeks. See you around. Kiss the boys for me. Oh, is that a teenage girl over there? Anyway, next story. Story number 9. Am I the a-hole for calling off my engagement because my fiance hangs out with someone who has no self-control when it comes to sex? I was engaged to my girlfriend, and we have been together for about 3 years. We took our friends to celebrate, and we all got a little bit drunk, and her friend started spilling some stuff about my girlfriend's past. The friend said that my girlfriend finally managed to control her hoe side, and she never could control herself around her friend, more specifically, her male friend. Let's call him Bob. So, from what I heard about Bob, he used to hook up regularly with my girlfriend. After we got home, I asked more questions to my girlfriend about her controlling herself. I had to press her, and she confessed that she cheated on previous boyfriends with Bob, and Bob cheated with her. She confessed that her exes never found out. Bob and her still hang from time to time, and they were friends since college. And now I'm here, her boyfriend who was her fiance, now having almost no trust towards her. I asked for the ring back and she insisted that nothing happened with Bob since we got together. But after learning all of this, I just don't believe her. Then in the comments section, OP replied to a downvoted comment that said,
OP, you probably have a sexual history too.
Sure I do, but I never cheated on anyone. Then user 2 commented and said,
Even if you ignore past actions on the assumption that she has changed, being friends with an affair partner is very, very weird. Shouldn't one be deeply ashamed of cheating? I can't imagine how you can just happily chill with someone you committed such an immoral act with, and multiple times.
I agree. If she wasn't friends with Bob, it might be a lot different. Then another user commented and said,
You could have given her an ultimatum.
I'm assuming you mean telling her she can't be friends with Bob? And finally, one user said,
OP, is she hanging out with Bob solo, or is Bob part of a friend group? In retrospect, can you see any signs that she cheated on you?
Both. I never thought it was a big deal until now. Update. 2 days later, I broke up with her. I told her that I need to see her phone if she wants me to even consider staying with her. I dug through her texts and messages and I found out that she messaged Bob about missing him about a year ago. Bob asked to meet up after talking about all the sex they used to have, and my girlfriend only turned him down because I had moved in with her at that point. Her message was,
I wish I could, but OP moved in. I'll let you know if I get a chance, though.
And I am done. I packed my stuff and I'm moving in with my parents. My girlfriend apologized for those messages and insisted that nothing actually happened. Yeah, sure, only because you couldn't. Anyways, thanks for all the support, by the way. And also, I swear to God, some of you could catch your SO butt naked with another person, but as long as you didn't actually see them F them, you'd be like, well, there's no evidence they actually F'd, so they clearly didn't cheat. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on the ex insisting nothing happened and said, I don't think she's dumb. I think she was just desperate at that point. Then one user commented and said,
I'm sorry, OP. However, I'm glad you found out before you got married. And even though nothing happened, the intention was there. If she had replied differently that she no longer wanted that life and to cut Bob out of her life as she was in a happy relationship with you, it would be a start. But she didn't. Has your ex tried reaching out to you? Even though she doesn't end up with you, I hope she can learn from this and not carry on her cheating ways.
I don't know. I've blocked her on everything that I could think of. And finally, one user commented and said,
I'm curious how she took the breakup. It sounds like she was resigned to let your relationship go, but I might be inferring too much. If she was pretty stoic about it, that might confirm your instincts were correct.
She kept insisting that nothing had happened and told me that she was never going to see Bob ever again. She was crying. I tried to tune her out, to be honest, so I didn't hear exactly what she said. So we read this story somewhat recently. I think there were some new parts at the end there, which is why we're reading it again. And it's a pretty short and straightforward story and good. OP didn't want to drag it out, and he's like, hey, I don't really like what you did in your past, and you were trying to do it again, so bye. And that's it. He left. No extended drama, no 4-part updates, no I gave her another chance or anything like that. He said, I don't trust you, and I will not trust you. Bye. Deuces. Next story. Story number 10. An update 8 years later. My ex, 42F, is creating so much drama in my life, 37M, that I am having trouble coping, and I'm considering giving up my kids just to get it all to stop. I don't know where to begin. I was married for 13 years, have 2 small children, 4 and 6, and after being divorced, I am now remarried to a wonderful woman, Donna. My ex, though, will not stop harassing me.
I have to communicate with her for the kids, but it is so contentious that the court finally ordered all communication go through an online website. And I had to change my phone number and move. It was that bad. I had my kids this weekend. Things went great, and I went and saw my family. No incidents. We had a great time. Then I got this email. Jill and Marvin, the kids, report that they were in a traffic accident with you this weekend in the truck. They both report that the loud, obscene exchange between their father and the ABC towing driver scared them. They both report that they were bitten by Greg's dog, Murphy, during their visit at your folks' house this weekend. This is the second dog they have both reported biting them. I have also posted their reports that they have been bitten by a large dog named Betsy at your in-laws' house. They have traumatic memories of metal being scraped out of your leg, and I hope that you recover and get back to your job quickly. And I hope that Donna is okay. They report that you have trouble walking. This is consistent with behavior I observed at a drop-off on Sunday night. You didn't get out of your new car, and it appeared very awkward for you to unbuckle their booster seat belts from the driver's seat. I need to know about these things, please. Dog bites are notoriously dirty and prone to infections, and just because our children didn't appear to be as seriously injured as you were in the truck accident doesn't mean that they couldn't be stiff and sore and possibly have internal injuries for which I need to be observing. At least I need to understand why they were stiff and sore and acting more fearful than usual when they came home. Their mild to moderate bruising and scrapes and the chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers are consistent with their reports of the accident and the dog bites. I will take Jill and Marvin to the pediatrician walk-in clinic to rule out any unseen injuries and infections. It would be nice if you would call or email the doctor's office and tell them what you can about the incident and the dog bites. It could help rule out tests and treatments that might not be necessary, and it would also be nice if you would pay your half of their medical expenses, especially because the accident and the dog bites happened when they were with you. Today is Jill's first day of school, and I could have taken them to the doctor 2 days ago if you had shared that they were bitten and in a traffic accident that was bad enough that required a tow truck for the truck and medical care for you. If you want to drive the kids to Santa Barbara and back in a weekend, expose them to animals that aren't safe for children, and fight with tow truck drivers in front of them, I cannot prevent that. But what happens to their little growing bodies and the events that are being imprinted on their sweet, innocent minds is very much my business. Please share all of the information regarding what happened to our children in the truck accident, and please share all of the information regarding the bites from the dogs. As a mother, it is very worrisome to hear my preschooler and my first grader recount the dangerous things that are happening to them, but it is even more worrisome that my co-parent withholds vital information about their health. Jill and Marvin deserve to know that their parents are working together to take care of them. Thank you. And that was the email. And I don't even know where to begin. The dog that was there had no teeth, didn't bite them, and couldn't have even if it wanted to. My in-law's dog is dead. I was never in an accident. There was no tow truck. All of this is false. I can't even find a shred of a real event that could have gotten twisted. This comes on the heels of 4 days ago her trying to corner me into signing away 30% of my custody agreement and refusing to even let me look at the details of the paperwork. I am so frazzled by all of this that at times I think about signing away my parental rights just to not have the stress. But I don't want my children thinking I don't care for them and abandoning them. How do you reason with this level of crazy? Any advice is welcome. I need help managing this. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Why are you so cowed by your ex-wife that her telling you to sign something you don't want to sign causes you stress? It shouldn't be that hard to say no." That is a brief snapshot. When it's every day or every other day, it gets stressful. I never know what accusation is going to be lobbed at me next. Then OP replied to a deleted comment and said, "We got divorced 2 years ago. And yeah, I already spent almost all of my savings to get the custody agreement I have. Dropping another $20K would be tough. To pay for that, I'd have to pick up another job, which would then not allow me to have access to the custody that I am wanting." Then user 2 commented and said, "Turn this over to your lawyer. Please fight this fight. I know it's hard, but can you imagine growing up with a mother who chooses to rewrite history and reality to suit her whims?" Lawyers have been contacted. No response in 3 days. Emailed with this craziness this morning and still crickets. Then user 3 commented and said, "So these scrapes and bruises and chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers, so do these things not exist or what?" I didn't see anything. A scrape on the foot from the flip-flop one was wearing, but other than that, nothing. And finally, user 4 said, "How does your wife Donna feel about all of this?" She is pissed. It is a major source of conflict in our marriage.
Actually, it is just about the only thing we ever argue about. Update 4 months later. Title: Legal rights surrounding a primary custody parent who, after 4 attempts, is not picking up her children from me. I am in Southern California. I don't know what to do here. I am the non-custodial parent. I have had the kids for 1 week, 4 and 6, during Christmas break. Due to the high conflict nature of my ex-wife, we have been assigned a co-parenting person to help mediate. On the 30th, we were supposed to exchange the kids back to their care. I showed up 15 minutes early to the location, and we waited for 1 hour and 7 minutes before giving up and leaving. She had been claiming that she was right there for over 35 minutes. The location was an IHOP 300 feet from the freeway exit. After I left, I got a slew of messages calling me all sorts of names and claiming that she had just showed up, but that I had left. This song and dance has happened before, and she said that she would meet me anywhere, just to let her know where. This time, I called her bluff and picked up a location 2 miles from my home and told her the kids are hungry and tired of waiting. I'm taking them to my house. When you arrive at the location 11 miles from the IHOP, text me and let me know, and I'll bring them right over. I sent her the location 5 times in text and twice via email. 4.5 hours later, nothing. I then told her that we could meet at the agreed-upon location at 11 a.m. the next day for the exchange, just 1 day later than planned. When I woke up in the morning, she demanded I drive them 1 hour to a new location because she had a 103-degree fever and couldn't drive. There was, of course, a back and forth about her ability to care for her children if she was too sick to drive, and ultimately, she failed to arrive at the location at 11 a.m. At 5 p.m., I got a doctor's note stating that she only had a cold and was fine to care for the children. I didn't ask for this. I then called her and we had a heated back and forth, but ultimately I relented and told her that I would bring them to a location that she chose. It was 1 hour away and 1 mile from her house, under the agreement that she would show up this time. Before leaving, I sent an email confirming the location and time. That was sent at 7:48 p.m., and we arrived at the location at 8:51 p.m., and I texted to let her know we were there. What happened next was so frustrating. No response to any text was ever given. Every time I would send a text message, I would get an email, all of them stating the same thing, that she would not leave her house until I verified my location. I sent her 6 different responses to emails telling her where I was. All I would get in response is more messages asking me to confirm my location. I even made a phone call telling her where I was. Unfortunately, at this point, I was in such disbelief, I did yell at her and tell her to get her ass down here. Not my finest hour. At 10:21 p.m., with kids in high anxiety and crying that their mom had forgotten them again, we left and then drove back home. I have now messages accusing me of child abduction. I don't know what to do. I'm not subjecting my kids to this again. I can't bear to watch them check every car and get excited and say, "I think I see her," over and over again for hours while she's playing these games. My worry is that the cops are going to come knock down my door when I have done everything I can to make these exchanges work. Is this enough to have my lawyers file an emergency hearing to get primary custody? I am in limbo right now, since neither my lawyers or the co-parenting person will be in the office until the 3rd. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
Why can't you just drop the kids off at her house if she's not feeling well enough to drive? It sounds like she's playing games and you're letting her.
She told me over and over again not to come to her house under any circumstance. Then user 2 commented and said,
Was the mediator alerted to this situation when it was occurring? If not, why not?
She doesn't check her email or phone over the weekend. And finally, user 3 commented and said,
Keep the kids, stop dealing with her crap, and file for emergency full custody this week.
She is now stating that she is 5 miles away, waiting for me to deliver the kids. This was not prearranged. Update 6 months later. Title: Not sure what my options are with a crazy ex-wife scenario. Literally, I am in the process of a 7:30 evaluation for primary custody of my kids. 2 kids, 7 and 5. Today was another doozy of an exchange, and I am fearful for the kids. I don't know what my options are here, if any. My ex was 53 minutes late to the exchange today. At 4:24, she sent me a text message stating she was exiting the freeway. That is 2 miles from the meeting spot arranged in co-parenting for today, and she doesn't show up until 4:53. The exchange goes okay, but I know something is coming, because if she is ever in the wrong, she has to lash out and blame someone else or invent a scenario scenario where she is the victim. I had to wait all of 4 minutes. I got a text stating,
I just drove by your car and the back seat was empty. Where are the kids?
Then I replied to her, wasn't my car. I have 2 kids. Then, knowing where this was going, sent a picture of them in the car.
Her response was, when did you have time to take this? Because I had plenty of time to look at the stoplight. You were alone. It's okay if Donna,
My current wife,
has them. It's totally legal, but just weird to hide it.
I then called her. She answered. I said, hi. She said hi, and then I asked the kids to say hi, and then I asked them, where are we, kids? And at this point, she started saying,
Hello? Hello? Is anyone there?
and then I got a text message saying,
Thank you for the phone call, but there was no sound.
then I responded with, I am turning off my phone now. These accusations are bizarre. And then I got back from her,
Not as bizarre as pretending to pick up our kids. Just tell me who has them.
and I called again immediately with hello, hello, and I knew for sure it was a game at this point, and I just ended the call. She then responded with,
You can't just keep ending our conversations because you don't want to deal with the facts. If this turns into another 49-hour abduction like New Year's, I will definitely be filing a report.
this is next level insane. I am terrified for the kids. This is like raising to the level that she needs to be committed. Any thoughts apart from just continuing with the psych eval that I already had going on? Edit. By the way, we went back to family court, and the court had ordered a psych evaluation. That process is about 6 months. We are 1 month into it. Update. 2.5 years later. Okay, I want to give the timeline so people understand the full issue I am up against. Basically, my children were hidden from me for 55 hours during my parenting time, their location, and the whole situation. Well, I was lied to about it the whole time. I have been divorced for 5 years. 30% custody exchange was supposed to be December 28th at 12 p.m. for my half of Christmas break. Timeline. December 26th, I get a 4 p.m. picture of where they are spending Christmas, which is of my ex and 2 kids who are now 9 and 7, showing large snowfall and a message saying that they are not sure when the snowplows will start. December 27th, 12 p.m., another picture and message stating the same thing, except in the picture you can tell cars have left and come back from the first picture. 6 p.m., I tell her if you get out tonight, I'll come get the kids as planned, in court order from your house, 12 p.m., December 28th. If you do not come out until the next morning, do you just want to bring them by my house, which is on the way from where she is coming from, and then I get a thumbs up to that message. 8 p.m., I ask if she got out. No response. December 28th, 9 a.m., I ask for a status update so I know if I need to drive the hour to her house. No response. 10:20 a.m., I ask again for an update. No response. 11 a.m., I leave to drive the hour for the exchange, not knowing the info. 12 p.m., exchange time. I arrive at the house, and I text that I have arrived. Her car is there. Her mom's car is not. She lives with her mom. And then I videotape the time on the vehicle and verbally note the time and date. And I show her car in the darkened house on the videotape. I assume she has driven up with her mom to where she is snowed in. 12:10 p.m. Finally get a response saying that they are still snowed in. No plows yet. 4 p.m. I offer that since my parents are driving down and they have a large truck, they could swing by and get the kids on their way to my house tomorrow. No response until the next day. Note, I check all the roads in the area, and all are showing being open and flowing traffic. I even verify with live traffic cams from half a mile away from where she is that roads are cleared and cars are driving. I have screenshots of this, and the video is timestamped. December 29th, 8 a.m., she declines this and says, we should stick to orders, and she also tells me that her internet is out. December 29th, 11 a.m., I contact the police about child abduction. I tell them the story. They say, here's an accident number. We are not going to open a case on this. Take it up with the court. 4 p.m., I get a message saying, freeways are closing down for the night. Been driving every back road looking for entrances without frozen bridges or backed up with accidents. It's an hour wait every time I fill up. Everybody's sure it'll be better tomorrow. Signals are better at least. I respond asking her to tell me when she leaves. Note, no freeways or highways are shut down. I check all state and local websites to verify. I even check Twitter and local live feed cameras. December 30th, 8 a.m., I call my lawyers, tell them what is going on, and send them all of the timeline, and they say that they will reach out to her attorney. 1 p.m., they finally get in touch with her attorney, and the response back is that she is leaving today, that she will message me when she does, and I can come and get the kids from her place. 2 p.m., I ask for an update from my ex. 4:45 p.m., still having gotten no communication vacation, I call my lawyers again. They call her lawyer, and I finally get a response that says,
I have left.
that's all. 6 p.m., I get a message that says,
I am home. You can come get them.
and 7 p.m., 55 hours past exchange, I get the kids, and I ask them about the snow and being stuck. I was not trying to pry information or grill them, but it was just casual, light conversation. And they tell me that they have been at home for 3 days, since the night of the 27th. Now, I am asking some more pointed questions, and I ask about what car they drove. They are kids, so maybe the timeline is wrong, but they say they were in their mom's car because grandma had to leave on Christmas Day to be back home, so they drove separately. They say that mom said I told her she could keep them for 2 more days, and I am furious. It was all lies. I am contacting my lawyers today, but what are my options here? I want to have a reasonable expectation walking into this. My stance right now is I need action, and I need someone else to be as posted about this as I am, or I will find a lawyer who is. But I do realize my emotions are elevated. Additional note, in the last 2 years, I have filed a 730, spent $12K on it, 2-year process. Basically, it said I am the better parent, but that she might be improving, and that this suggestion would have to wait a year, and then I would have to do another 730. And if things haven't improved by then, it would be appropriate to swap me to primary custody. That report was produced in April of this year. Update number 4. 4.5 years later. I was looking on my profile and saw my post in this subreddit from about 7-8 years ago, the original post I made, as my ex was causing so much chaos that I was doubting everything. I took everything to heart and implemented several things right away. I became a gray rock and started documenting my ass off. I consulted my lawyers, and they said they advised several steps, the first of which was a 730 evaluation. By the way, this is an evaluation done by a psychologist, and that process took a really long time, as the 730 evaluator got very sick halfway through. That took 10 months, and at the end of the report, it essentially read, Mom is volatile and disorganized, and that Dad's home would be a more stable home for the children. However, there is hope that Mom is starting to improve, so if things are still bad in 1 year, it would be appropriate to change custody to Dad. This was a tough pill to swallow. Things were not better, and the chaos was just intermittent, but we kept documenting and doing our thing. Eventually, we started getting a lot of emails from teachers that Jill, in particular, was often not bathed, never had her homework done, didn't have school supplies, and that she was falling way behind in her studies. We applied for a trial to review custody and asked for primary custody to be swapped to us. That was at the end of 2019, and trial was set for May 2020. So as you can imagine, once COVID hit, everything got delayed, and there was a large amount of events in 2020. COVID shut down. Donna and I had a child, Rebecca, and then my ex started denying visitation to Jill and Marvin. Every 2 weeks I would go down, wait in front of the house, no kids would emerge. Sometimes I would have the police come, not to force anything, but to get the documentation in terms of a case number. This went on for 4 months before I was able to start getting visitation again. Eventually, the trial was set for summer of 2021 and went for 3 days, and I had over 500 pages of documentation. Day 1 was entirely testimony from the co-parenting therapist that we had been seeing for 5 years. She testified that my ex was the most difficult client she had ever worked with in her career, that my ex never followed a single agreement in session, and that she was a pathological liar. Last day of testimony, my ex was caught there lying on the stand and was presented with evidence that she had been secretly taking the children to a medical professional for 2 years that I had explicitly not agreed to. So, starting in August of 2021, the judge ordered the kids to come live with me, primary custody, and limiting my ex to 4 days a month. It's now been 3 years, and when Jill was in 5th grade, she had a 26% in math and a 40% in English. For the last 3 years, she's maintained a 4.0 every single year, and will be starting high school in honors geometry, honors English, and AP biology. Marvin has also been doing well, and just finished his first year of middle school with a 4.0 GPA, and is loving his coding and robotics elective. They have new clothes and have learned new skills and responsibilities. Donna has been crucial in setting up patterns to help with success in school. Their rooms are both immaculate, and they are the ones doing it with very little direction from us. They are happy and finally involved in activities and sports. Our little Rebecca adores them both, and I will often find all 3 of them cuddled up together as one of the older 2 reads a book to her. Jill made the decision recently to stop going on visits to see her mom. The chaos and drama started being directed at her, along with the lack of food, clothes that fit, etc. Marvin is still going for visits, and we are encouraging that as long as he is feeling safe there. All in all, things are going so well, and the kids are doing incredible. There are hard moments still, but it has all been worth it, and we are able to shield them for the most part from any chaos their mom may want to start. If anyone is reading this that initially sent advice, thank you. When you are in the thick of it, it is tough to not feel like it is impossible, and you will never be able to overcome it. I needed that outside perspective. And finally, in the comments section, one user said,
OP, I cheered when I heard that both of the kids got their grades up. You've set them on the right path, sir. Good work.
"Thanks. We knew they had the ability. It was amazing what can happen when kids have support with homework and a routine to follow every day. Soon, they start believing in themselves and then setting their own lofty goals. Jill has dreams of becoming an investigative journalist. Marvin would like to become a nuclear engineer.
So I am a child of divorce. It happened when I was a young lad, and I am privy to the fact that the system will heavily favor the mother when it comes to getting custody of the children. Even when Mama Bear might be a little bit crazy like this story, but thankfully OP stuck it around for the long haul and turned it around. I mean, it's not even that she was evil, it's just that she's crazy. A pathological liar, as the accountability said, and said, Your Honor, in my whole entire career, I have never met a woman more awful than this lady right here. Her dress, whack. Her shoes, whack. Her hair, whack. Your Honor, get her out of here. Give this man custody of his kids. Look at his fit, his drip, his hair, his coat, his suit. He is crisp. Good for him for sticking through, because, oh my God, I was just getting exhausted reading this story, so I can't imagine living it. But that is the power of fathership, dadhood, father-dad, parenting. Anyway, next story.
Story number 11. Am I wrong for staying at my mother's house because of my wife? Okay, context. I am 33M. My wife, 27F, is a sweet and loving person. We've been married for 5 years, and she really is the love of my life, and she truly makes me happy. She really does. However, she's been getting mad at me over very stupid things recently, to the point where I wasn't comfortable staying in the same house as her. I own the house. She cooks, I clean. We both work. It's a good system. I work in construction, but it's really a cubicle job. We have regular work parties to celebrate big wins, and some of us go to bars afterwards. These parties are sort of big, and all of my coworkers bring their wives. You can see where this is going. After constantly being questioned, I asked my wife to come. She said she didn't want to because after work, she's usually exhausted. She's a social worker. I don't buy that excuse because it's just a party for a few hours, and then she can go home when me and my coworkers go to the bar. I said this, and she said that it wouldn't be safe for her to go home alone at night. I offered to drop her off, and then she told me to drop it. I went to the party and got pestered. I ended up not going to the bar and came home in a bad mood. Admittedly, I shouted a bit, and I said that it was annoying that I make it look like I'm not married, or that I'm kidnapping you or whatever. She didn't really yell back, and I was hella confused. And then she asked me why I was so bothered, and I said it was embarrassing, and then she shook her head as if mocking me. Now, here's where I might be in the wrong. I called her an a-hole and stormed out to my mother. I don't like going to my mother because she often sides with my wife more than me, and it's stupid. I haven't told her why I was there, and I told her that I just missed her. So anyway, am I wrong? She hasn't texted me yet, and it only makes me feel like she doesn't care about me at all. Edit. I am still currently at my mother's house. Honestly, the comments have eaten me up alive, and I actually may be in the wrong about all of this. But I do want to give context about the parties. They are a constant thing, like every other Friday type party. At this point, I don't even know what we're celebrating, but they are fun. My coworkers are also really heavy drinkers. I don't just mean that they ask me questions about my wife like, where is she? Sure, it starts like that in the beginning, but the questions progressively get worse. And if I tell anyone to back off, I'm the villain. And yes, I do leave the parties when I get uncomfortable. But when I don't go to the parties, I get pestered during the day, so what's the point? Finally, my wife has gone to a party of mine once or twice, and it's not like she said it's not her thing. She's enjoyed them before, so why deny me now? Anyway, I am probably in the wrong for leaving to stay with my mother, and I just hope she isn't thinking about doing what some of you have said and divorcing me. It really isn't that serious. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
You have no idea how emotionally draining and stressful it is being a social worker. She deals with issues on behalf of those that usually can't speak for themselves. And she also sees people in deplorable conditions, listens to their stories, and tries to find them assistance. Your attitude that she just works 8 hours is total BS. Those 8 hours can feel like 8 years. And the things that she has to deal with aren't something you can easily leave at work. It's not an easy easy job. If she doesn't want to go, she doesn't have to. And she went a couple of times just to please you. What the hell more do you want? If you are embarrassed by not having your wife attend a party, that's a you problem. You are wrong for yelling at her, cussing at her, pestering her to go, and for running home to hide behind mommy's apron strings. Grow a pair of nuts and treat your wife as a man should.
She didn't just go because I wanted her to. When I asked, she said yes, and I know she had a good time. It's just that the parties have gotten more intense lately because of my coworkers. Then user 2 commented and said,
A lot of good comments here. I just want to say, stop going to the party. At this point, it's just an excuse to drink. Unless you are actually celebrating something, tell them you have things to do with your wife, and she is more important than a weekly party.
The parties are a good time though. I do hang out with my wife when I get home if she's not already asleep, but she usually is. That's kind of my point. She's already asleep, so I might as well do something fun while I wait. But at the same time, if she didn't have to go to a party, then she would be asleep. So I'm just taking time away from her. I don't know. I'm obsessively checking the comments because she still hasn't texted me, nor I have her. Then user 3 said,
Your mom keeps siding with your wife because your wife is right. What a childish overreaction.
And finally, user 4 commented and said,
You're wrong. Your wife is a social worker. See that word? Social? That's what your wife does all day long. Socializing. Don't you think she deserves a little quiet time to reset for the next day? Social work can be one of the most mentally draining careers there is. Then she has a husband who can't respect her need for downtime. When he doesn't get his way, he goes running home to mommy. How long do you think she'll take before realizing how emotionally immature you are?
Update. I didn't know if I should add the update here or make a new post, but here it is. She didn't want to go to the party because she's pregnant. She just didn't know how to tell me. The past 3 days I stayed at my mom's, she didn't contact me at all. It really hurt, and I was worried. I came back today, and she was in our bedroom. I said hi, she gave me the pregnancy test, and left to a friend's. I was stunned. Why didn't she just tell me? That would have saved us so much more time. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I admit that I was wrong for yelling at her, and it was childish to go to my mom. A lot of you said that she probably sides with my wife because my wife is always right. That might be true. 3 days of reflection really showed me that. I love my wife, and I think I'm ready to be a dad. I don't know. I don't think she'd be going to leave me, not with a baby. She needs me still. I wish she would have just said that she was pregnant, and I would have just let it go. In fact, I might have not even gone to that damn party. Update. My wife has come home today and sat me down. We had a very long talk about us, about the baby, about me. I expected this, but she basically said that she felt that sometimes I let my anger blow out and that I went to my mother way too much. I wish I went on an advice forum too, but I just sort of sat there while she talked, hoping that she would cool herself down. Seeing her voice the same opinions that you guys had sort of solidified everything in my head. I am a huge a-hole, and I really don't deserve my wife, and I am not ready for this baby, but my wife has decided to keep it. And though most of you guys will hate this, she is not divorcing me. A comment mentioned couples therapy, so I just kind of threw it out there when she was done talking, and I guess it was enough to give us still a chance. So, next week we're doing that, I guess. I'm still on the fence, but wifey has suggested that I have individual therapy too, and I just really want this to work out, so I agreed. Not sure when that is happening though. As for the parties, I'm no longer going. Especially now that a baby's on the way, there is no need for a drink. Last thing I need, really. I doubt that it'll go anywhere, but I'm also thinking of getting a new job, somewhere far away from my, as you guys put it, alcoholic co-workers. Thank you for the blunt and harsh comments. Who knew that all it took was a bunch of internet strangers to tell me how wrong I was? It almost took my relationship too. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
As others had said, she doesn't need you just because she is having a child. There are tons of single mothers out there who say it was 10 times better doing it alone than dealing with their husband's issues. My sister is a single mom, and while she struggles financially, she loves the freedom it gives her. She makes the decisions for her and her son. No more dealing with her ex's BS. You need to do some major groveling. I would find a thoughtful pregnancy gift for her. Plan a date night or something special for her. You need to show her that you need her. You messed up big for leaving for your mother's house for something so small. Right now, she's thinking she is about to have a child with a child. You need to sit down and have a long conversation apologizing for what you did wrong and explain how you won't do it again. I'm sure she's concerned that down the line, if you have another disagreement when she doesn't do something you want her to do, that you might just leave. Is she always going to have that over her head that you're just going to leave? And what happens when crap really gets real and there are actual hard issues at hand? Marriage is filled filled with tons of ups and downs. You can't just run off like that.
I wish I saw this comment before we had a talk. Thank you so much. I'm going to buy a crapload of gifts as soon as I can. Thank you. Then user 6 commented and said,
She needs me still, you say. So you don't actually care about your wife or her feelings. You think she can't leave you because she needs you. You're in for a rude awakening. Your absence likely showed her she doesn't need you at all.
And finally, user 7 commented and said,
What does she need you for? To yell at her? Or better yet, yell at the child? She's a social worker. She's seen the worst of the worst. And you yelling at her when she found out she was pregnant could have been eye-opening. Not knowing is not an excuse. You don't talk to somebody that you supposedly love like that.
So, I don't know about you guys. I don't really agree with OP's behavior. I'm willing to bet that most people don't, but I feel like these comments might have been going like a little too hard on him. I think this story is about a mama's boy, party boy, starting to realize that he needs to grow the F up. That's what I think this story is about. He's like, oh man, I can't have beer anymore, and that's probably for the best. And I can't party with my coworkers anymore, and that's probably for the best. He's growing up in real time, so I will always applaud people for wanting to improve themselves. I will always approve of that. Should he have yelled at her? No. Was he making a mountain out of a molehill? Yes. Is there a reason why mom always agrees with the wife? Probably so. But I felt like those comments were going a little too hard. I understand the verbiage of she needs me still, but I don't know, like he didn't really elaborate on his thought process on that, and then these commenters took it and ran with it. And they may be right, but I don't necessarily think I believe that. Again, I overlap with a lot of the comments here, but I just felt like it was a little bit too much. But again, maybe we'll get an update down the line, but he's going to go to therapy, like I always recommend, and couples therapy, which I sometimes recommend. So, I mean, he's on the path to improve this. He's recognized his behavior. So, I mean, he's in the position to improve himself. He's had the conversation, and now they're in the early steps of improving that behavior, more specifically him. So maybe we'll get an update. Maybe he'll improve, but I don't know. I don't hate the guy's guts or anything, but I'm just like, bro, you're stupid. Anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Long videos. You guys like these? I hope so. For my sake, and Really Sparked's sake, and Chris Statlander's sake, and my throat's sake, I hope you enjoy these long videos, because you know what? I do. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and